That is a name that has been etched into the minds of hundreds of thousands of YouTube viewers. Whether it be for his grand victories in the field of esports or his admittance to seemingly career-destroying allegations, it's likely that you've at least heard of him. And if you haven't, well, this video is going to be a wild ride. In this video, I seek to go over the entire controversy surrounding ZeRo, from its very beginning all the way to the bitter end. I will be throwing criticism towards all sides of this situation, as no side handled it perfectly, but as you'll soon see, there's one side I tend to agree with more. My goal is to at least give you a better understanding of this controversy, as it was one of the most convoluted and complex situations to follow, being spread across dozens of hours of videos and streams, and lasting for months on end. Without further ado, I give you the great trial of ZeRo. ZeRo, or Gonzalo Barrios, not to be confused with Gonzalo Lira, is a Chilean-American YouTuber, primarily known for his competitive play of the game Super Smash Bros., eventually racking up a record-breaking 56 consecutive tournament win streak in the game from November 2014 to October 2015. ZeRo was born in 1995 in the city of Chillán, Chile. His childhood was marred with many serious issues, namely poverty, the divorce of his parents, abuse by his father, and severe bullying at school, which all led to him having extremely poor mental health as a child. Since ZeRo's family suffered from poverty, there was a time in his life where he couldn't attend school. In this time, he became a shut-in and was diagnosed with ADHD and extreme depression. Despite all this adversity, ZeRo found solace in a game called Super Smash Bros. Melee for the Nintendo GameCube, and eventually, he felt the calling to compete in the game. ZeRo would compete at more and more Smash tournaments over time, picking blueberries with his mother to financially support his ventures, and by 2011, he had won his first tournament, namely Chile's second national Super Smash Bros. Brawl tournament. Eventually, in 2013, ZeRo moved into his friend's family's basement in Philadelphia with the purpose of making his skills in Super Smash Bros. Into a career. He would pick up as many tournaments as he could, reinvesting his winnings into attending even more tournaments, and eventually besting this goofy-looking dude Mewtwo King.
The animatronic characters here do get a bit quirky at night.
Eventually he, along with some other prominent Smash players, were invited to E3 2014 to compete in Nintendo's brand new game, Super Smash Bros. For Wii U, commonly known as Super Smash Bros. 4. ZeRo would go on to beat Hungrybox and take first place in the competition, cementing himself as the winner of the first Smash 4 tournament.
This is it! One grab, he misses. Hungrybox doesn't get it. Destruction!
Gonzalo gets the grab and forward throw. Hungrybox KO'd off at the top, and we have our first ever winner of a Smash Bros. For Wii U tournament.
Congratulations to Gonzalo Barrios!
After this is when ZeRo would go on to have his record-setting 53 tournament win streak. This was achieved by not just going to the big competitions.
This could be a decisive two-stock, and up air is going to be the end of the tournament. ZeRo will take it standing on it, winning Apex 2015.
But by going to every tournament he could and obliterating the competition.
He's gonna try to get the air dodge read? Yeah, he does.
ZeRo was, at the time, widely considered to be the best player in the world of Smash 4, and more broadly, one of the best Smash Bros. Players of all time. It was safe to say that, at this point, ZeRo was on top of the world. He would only eventually lose his tournament win streak to a fellow top Smash player, namely, a player named Nairo. Despite this loss, ZeRo still placed well in consecutive tournaments until a huge roadblock presented itself. He sustained a hand injury that forced him onto the sidelines for 2 months.
Okay, so basically what happened was that I had like this piece of skin in my hand that literally looked like an illness. So then they literally had to like remove a chunk of my fingers, and then it took about 4 months for the skin to come back. Basically, for me to play, I'll have to like grab the controller like this or something, because even touching it slightly, because it was like all patched up and everything, it was kind of gross.
This small hiatus seemed to have affected him in some way, as after coming back to tournaments, he began to slip, and those back-to-back first places of the past turned into 2nd place, 9th place, 13th place, and at his worst, even 49th place. But eventually, ZeRo's luck began to improve yet again, and he shunned out the inconsistency that had plagued him for a time. With first place after first place, ZeRo was on top of the world yet again. And in 2018, after a successful career of competition, ZeRo announced his retirement from Smash tournaments while he was still ranked at number 1. He retired due to a combination of disillusionment with Smash Bros., as well as a general desire to focus on himself more as a person. He also took this time to focus more on his streaming presence on Twitch. A few months later, in May, ZeRo would announce that he had been invited to the 2018 E3 Smash Bros. Ultimate Invitational, of which he would go on to win, beating the Smash player MK Leo in the process.
MK Leo getting back on the stage. ZeRo trying to close this thing out. Side throw against MK Leo. Still not enough, but here it is, and that is it. Your champion, ZeRo, able to get the victory over MK Leo, and he is your champion of the Super Smash Bros. Invitational 2018.
How does he keep doing it, man? How does he win every invitation? How does he...
Later, in November of 2018, ZeRo would formally announce his return to Smash Bros. Tournaments with Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, as well as an increase in the quantity of his online content. Following this announcement, he stuck to his word and produced lots of content, as well as attending Smash Bros. Tournaments. And that is, for the most part, the story of ZeRo. In just a few years, ZeRo went from a nobody to one of the biggest names in competitive Super Smash Bros. His story really embodies the idea of the American dream, a young foreigner with ambitious dreams coming to the US and making it big in a young industry. Hearing his story makes it hard not to root for the guy. After all, what's not to love about ZeRo? Wait, what's this? Allegations released about ZeRo? Wait a second, what are they? ZeRo started dating his girlfriend when she was just 15? Well, that's just not true. ZeRo ghosted a girl after her not wanting to get sexual? Okay, not that serious of an allegation, who gives a shit? ZeRo sent one of his mods hentai because he assumed they were over 18? That's not that bad. ZeRo showed hentai to players at tournaments? Well, it wasn't like that, the girls in the pictures were probably fully clothed. ZeRo got catfished by a girl who claimed to be 20? Well, that's not his fault, he couldn't have known. Well, I don't see what the big deal is. ZeRo seems clean from what I can see. Wait, there's one more allegation. A girl on Twitter named Katie posted a twit longer saying that ZeRo, when he was 19, had messaged her sexually when she was just 14 years old, and even has screenshots of most of it. She even claims that ZeRo asked her to masturbate with an ice cube and send pictures, although she didn't follow through with it. Well, this can't be real. She has no real evidence. Screenshots can be faked, and she doesn't even have screenshots of the ice cube thing. There's no way that this could possibly be proven true. Right? In a move that no one could have expected, ZeRo admitted to the allegations. He originally addressed the situation in a Google Doc, released on July 3rd, 2020, in which he goes over some of Katie's screenshots and admits to inappropriate conversations with her. Point blank, the last comment here is very inappropriate and disgusting. I regret it tremendously, and it just shows I have a lot to learn and strive to be better. It's shameful and gross. I'm sorry. ZeRo also makes a disclaimer before talking about Katie, stating, "To begin with, for context, I have never met Katie in my life, and we have never sent each other graphic pictures of any capacity. I want to make that very clear." The reason I bring this up is due to the fact that ZeRo doesn't even mention the Ice Cube thing throughout this entire Google Doc. ZeRo full stop denies ever sending or being sent graphic pictures, but you'll notice the one thing ZeRo doesn't deny is requesting graphic pictures. Keep this kind of sneaky language in the back of your head moving forward. Another notable aspect of this response is that ZeRo implies he only found out Katie's age a ways into their conversation, and was disgusted when she revealed that she was 14. Now, I'm no psychologist, but from the messages that ZeRo provides, does this really sound like he's disgusted from learning Katie's age? Oh wow, I'm surprised. I had no idea you felt so strong about me. I'm honored. You're adorable and very nice. We can definitely talk more and stuff. I'd like to know you some more. I think not, and to expound upon that, 2 days later, another screenshot would be released which Katie forgot to put in her original twit longer, which shows Katie stating her age days before ZeRo claimed, meaning that ZeRo knew her age from the start. Further down in the doc, ZeRo gives a graphic retelling of some tragic events from his childhood, such as abuse from his father and him being molested at school, supposedly to explain why he is the way that he is. There is a very big trigger warning for the following story, and I recommend caution when reading it. It will help you understand me as a person, but I also want to say that I am not asking for sympathy or support when mentioning it in any way. I'm doing this to really be transparent with who I am, why I am the way I am, and hopefully this sheds light on why ultimately I'm a flawed person. Now, I'll leave it up to you on whether you think this part of ZeRo's document is emotional manipulation or not, but I will say it's definitely a strange and curious thing to include in a response to the allegations, as a segment like that would be a perfect way to try and bait for sympathy. Finally, ZeRo ends his response by saying, "Moving forward, I want to take this time to self-reflect and improve myself as a person. I always wanted to inspire people and be a beacon of reason. I failed, and I made terrible mistakes that I deeply regret. I want to learn to be a better person one day. I'm so sorry to everyone involved." With that said, my trauma in general, my terrible mistakes, a friend of mine committing suicide, and friends who are not who I thought they were has had me in a horrible mental state, and I'm at the point where I feel like I'm going to break. I don't know where to go from here. Please let me know if there's anything else I can do to make anything better. He also posted a reply to this on Twitter saying, "I want to mention that I'll also be permanently banning myself from Smash Bros. Events in any capacity. I don't want to make anyone uncomfortable, and I don't deserve to be there ever again after all this." Just to recap, in this response, while ZeRo doesn't mention the Ice Cube thing, he admits to sending inappropriate messages to Katie, describing some of his messages as inappropriate, shameful, gross, and horrendous. He also includes a more than 2,000-word story about his sad childhood, comprising approximately 51% of his response. He claims that he included this part to explain why he is the way that he is. And finally, he concludes his response by stating that he will no longer be attending Smash Bros. Tournaments. 1 day later, on July 4th, 2020, ZeRo released his canonical second response to the situation in a twitlonger entitled, "I Have to Come Clean." It reads as follows. "Hey, I can't sleep, and I just can't take this back and forth. I don't think it makes sense to keep this going. I just want this all to stop and for me to at least atone. I also want people to stop defending me. I don't deserve it. Katie, the screenshot you guys were wondering about the Ice Cube thing, it's true. The claims that Katie makes are true in general. There's no graphic pictures of anything of the sort, but it's unforgivable regardless. I just want to be clear about it here. There's one more girl I spoke to in 2014 period a bit earlier. Her name is Laura. Originally, she never told me she was underage. She said she was older than me. I have a screenshot of this, but it doesn't matter nor make it better. But years later, she contacted me and said that she was actually underage. I apologized to her privately recently and told her I feel absolutely terrible about it. There's no graphic pictures or anything either that were exchanged, and she's from another country. I really want to atone, and I just want this discussion to stop. I'm not a good person, and it doesn't matter how terrible my life was. I did terrible things, and that's the end of it. I don't deserve for people to defend me. I'm working right now to obviously lose my sponsorships or any type of thing like that. I'm obviously not making more videos in general as well. I love you guys. Please don't be like me, and please don't forgive me either. I won't forgive myself either. Now, there's a lot to unpack here, so I'll try and do my best to go over everything. Right off the bat, ZeRo admits fully to Katie's claims against him, even admitting to the Ice Cube thing despite ignoring it in his previous response. This was groundbreaking at the time because that was one of the only things that Katie had no screenshots of. This response was the smoking gun for the ZeRo situation. While in his previous response he had already admitted partial guilt, this one went all the way. Make no mistake, this is all that is needed to condemn ZeRo. As well, he admitted to the worst allegations made against him. Another part of this twitlonger that is extremely noteworthy is that ZeRo also goes on to preemptively respond to a situation that also occurred in 2014 with a girl named Laura. This is the catfishing situation that I mentioned earlier, as ZeRo claims Laura never told him that she was underage, and in fact told him that she was even older than him. He also adds that they never exchanged graphic pictures and she was from a different country, presumably referencing that they couldn't have met up in real life. Keep this situation in the back of your head. ZeRo also states that it doesn't matter how terrible his life was, as he himself did terrible things. This is presumably referencing the story of his childhood that he had included in his previous response, and how ultimately, it doesn't really matter. Notably, this response has a definite tone of finality to it, as we would see by ZeRo disappearing from the internet. I would like to sidetrack for a bit here to talk about someone that is very important to understand the rest of this video, that person being Technicals. Technicals is a commentary YouTuber primarily known for his coverage of the Super Smash Bros. Community and his offensive, iDubbbz-like style of humor. His big break happened on July 16th, 2020, 12 days after ZeRo's departure, with the release of his video, ESAM, the biggest hypocrite in the Smash community, covering the hypocrisies of this Wojak-looking motherfucker. After his coverage of ESAM, he would temporarily take a break from covering Smash topics. Later, however, in 2021, he would return to covering that community with videos like The Curious Case of Captain Zack, My Video Got Samsora Banned, and The Abandoned Case of Anti. This era of tech videos is what I'd consider the Technicals World Tour, as he was not only becoming well known in the Smash community, but also in the wider commentary community. And not only did the commentary community get familiar with Tech got familiar with the commentary community. This can be seen in his appearances on RFC After Hours with AugieRFC and Boblax, and his appearance on the Half-Baked podcast with Turkey Tom, Nicholas DeOrio, and Lord Vega. He would also go on to become friends with some of these creators, most notably with Nick DeOrio, who he would go on to collaborate with in the future. Everything seemed like it was going well for Tech, and he would never ever get into an extremely messy, multiple month-long controversy with an entire community. Oh wait, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's get back to ZeRo. It had been a bit more than 8.5 months after ZeRo gave his confession, and all was quiet, until, on March 25th, 2021, ZeRo's wife Vanessa posted an update to Twitter announcing that ZeRo had tried to take his own life. In response to this development, the Smash Bros. Commentator EE reached out to ZeRo for an interview, and an interview he got. On April 28th, EE uploaded a video entitled Exclusive ZeRo Interview, Life and Wellness Update. This was accompanied by a post from ZeRo on Instagram stating, Just released an interview where I talk about my life leading up to this moment. I talk about a bunch of topics and it should answer most questions. Please watch all of it if you're interested. It's in EE's YouTube channel. Thank you. The interview consisted of ZeRo talking about a few things, notably how he had spent his time away from the internet riding dirt bikes, his inability to find a job after his confession to soliciting nudes from a minor, his new anxieties after said confession, and how he planned on committing suicide after posting the confession twit longer.
Yeah, so when I posted the very last thing I posted, which was I think it was like that thing on Twitter, or I forget, but it was like the very last thing I posted on Twitter. Actually, I was gonna kill myself right there. And like I had it all ready. I was like, it was like late at night. I forget when it was exactly, but it was like an awkward time. But yeah, like I was gonna commit suicide there. And then like Vanessa like stayed up for like 3 days to make sure I didn't kill myself. Because like I was literally like actively like I'm gonna do it right now.
Yeah.
Like there was like a period for like 2 days where like if Vanessa goes to the bathroom, I'll kill myself.
While ZeRo's and EE's fans might have liked the interview, Twitter did not. The main criticism being that an interview of this nature, regardless of EE's intent, could have the effect of people feeling sympathy for ZeRo and being more inclined to welcome him back. In response, EE tweeted, "Can't tweet back at you all, so here's a video about the interview. Definitely considering taking it down since it seems the intention is not hitting with a lot of folks." In response to this tweet, Twitter artist and Smash Bros. Orbiter Jisoo replied with, "Take it down. It's a slap in the face to not just me, but to Katie, to the other girls, and to the entire movement. You should know better than this." For context, Jisoo is ZeRo's former roommate and is the author of a 64-page Google document compiling together Katie's testimony along with a bunch of questionable and in some cases verifiably false allegations. If there ever was a slap in the face to Katie, it was from her, not EE. Regardless, EE responded to her reply with, "Well, that definitely wasn't the intent, but I'm not here to tell you how to feel. I was serious about hearing feedback. Give me a few minutes, Jisoo." Soon after this, EE's ZeRo interview was privated on his YouTube channel, and a community tab response was posted. Took the interview down because the intent versus reaction just wasn't where I wanted it to be. That's not right to any parties involved. Appreciate the feedback and stuff nonetheless though, guys. We'll continue to access things best I can. I don't apologize for wanting to make sure he didn't hurt himself, but I didn't take everything into account despite what my goal was when I put this together. Again, thanks for understanding. At the time of all this going down, Technicals covered this situation and spoke about it on RFC After Hours episode 277.
So ZeRo's come back now, is that what I'm hearing?
Well, ZeRo wanted to make a statement because people were worried about his like well-being and like his mental state because he attempted suicide a little bit ago. So what EE did was basically catch people up on how his life has been since, and people saw that as like a slap to the face of victims or like the people that he harmed.
Like he was trying to do a redemption arc?
Yeah, they thought EE was just trying to redeem him, even though it just kind of humanized him because it shows you what happens after this shit. And that's not good for them because they want to dehumanize him and basically just make sure he dies.
After this situation, ZeRo would make an Instagram post complaining about the hate his wife Vanessa received for starting an OnlyFans. Wait, what the fuck? Jesus Christ. Okay, let's move on. On July 25th, 2021, Technicals uploaded a video titled The Truth Behind the Sky House, featuring Sky and ZeRo. Since this video covers a plethora of topics particularly related to the Sky Williams controversy, a portion of them aren't pertinent to the situation at hand, so I'll just stick to the relevant ones. For this video, Technicals goes over and debunks the false allegations made against ZeRo in Jisoo's Google document and the fallout from EE's interview. Accompanying him in the video is none other than ZeRo himself, who goes over the allegations with Tech in a Discord call which is interspersed throughout the video. The ZeRo-related topics that are discussed and pretty thoroughly debunked or at least somewhat discredited in the video are Jisoo's allegations surrounding ZeRo's wife's age, Jisoo's allegation of ZeRo showing her porn, Leffen's allegation of ZeRo showing Japanese Smash players porn, and ZeRo's mod's allegation of ZeRo sending them porn without confirming their age. Now, don't get me wrong, Tech did a pretty good job with these allegations, and I think the reason he didn't go over anything related to the Katie allegations was likely just because he was sticking to things more related to the Sky House itself. Okay, another notable part of the video is that it features a commentator that you may have heard of before, that being Tech's colleague and now friend Nicholas DeOrio.
Jeffrey Epstein is defined by UrbanDictionary.com as an American socialite financer and convicted sex offender. Sky Williams is not, nor has he ever been, Jeffrey Epstein.
His section of the video just covers Sky Williams and never mentions ZeRo, and it seems unrelated now, but you'll see why I bring this up later into the video. After the release of this video, ZeRo would disappear from the internet for a few months. But of course, like all his other disappearances, he could not stay gone. ZeRo returned once again to the internet a couple months later on September 21st, 2021, but unlike in the past, he didn't just come back for some wellness check interview or to debunk some dumb allegations. No, ZeRo returned to streaming. Albeit this was on Instagram, not his main platform, but regardless, this was a curious move. At least in my humble opinion, this was likely spurred on by him testing the waters with his collaboration with Technicals, which was much more well received than his interview with EE. ZeRo would stream twice on Instagram before releasing an even bigger bombshell. On October 6th, ZeRo released a short clip to Instagram with the caption, "Here's a sneak peek to my reaction video of Sora getting in Smash Ultimate. Dude, I'm so hyped," essentially teasing his return to content creation in the near future. Finally, on November 12th, 2021, ZeRo released this message on his Instagram and YouTube community tab. Releasing a video statement Tuesday, November 16th on my YouTube channel. Please look forward to it as it will answer everything. Thank you. This, of course, raised a ton of questions. Had some smoking gun evidence been found behind the scenes that completely vindicated ZeRo of the worst allegations made against him? If so, then how? Wouldn't his confession nullify anything like that? The only way to find out was to wait for that fateful day of Tuesday, November 16th. Let's get into this. The date was Tuesday, November 16th. Technicals uploaded a video titled, "What Really Happened to ZeRo?" with the hashtag #WelcomeBackZeRo. Right off the bat, Tech starts off the video by retreading many of the allegations already covered in his Skyhouse video. These, again, include, as Tech puts it, explicit ads of sex workers on Craigslist, hentai with Japanese players at Apex, minors, hentai, and Discord, everyone's three favorite words, and finally, 020, Vanessa 15, and physical abuse. He also presents two more allegations from Jisoo's Google document that he previously hadn't discussed, mainly the allegations of ZeRo flying a minor out to a hotel and ZeRo sexually exploiting women. The flying out a minor allegations referred to the story of Laura, who I'll remind you is the girl who catfished ZeRo and confessed to doing it. Moving on, regarding the ZeRo sexually exploiting women allegations, even being the least charitable to ZeRo as possible, these allegations boil down to ZeRo being horny on Discord and as a result acting rude to some people. By the way, there's no substantial evidence for it, and even if there was, it's weird at most, and I don't really care about it when we're discussing allegations of an extremely serious nature like this. Moving on. Finally, we have reached the Katie allegations. The last time that these allegations were addressed in any real capacity was all the way back in July of 2020, with ZeRo's confession to soliciting nudes from an at the time 14-year-old girl. With the boastful message of "Welcome back ZeRo" that Tech promoted, surely he had either a heartfelt and remorseful response from ZeRo, or some kind of ace up his sleeve that disproved everything, right? Well, let's get into this section and see. Right off the bat, Technicals acknowledges that these allegations are
the only serious and legitimate problem that people have with ZeRo.
After this, he goes over the meat of Katie's accusations against ZeRo.
The worst offense, she claimed, was that he asked her to masturbate with ice and take pictures.
Alright, doing fine so far. Now, what will Technicals say in response to these allegations? Well, let's take a look.
If you're an observant reader, you may have noticed the stark contrast of tone from his previous responses. That's because ZeRo wholeheartedly intended for this to be his suicide note. And had it not been for Vanessa, that may have well been the case.
Okay, this is where I start to have some issues. Major issues. When addressing Katie's allegations, Technicals fully accepts that the screenshots Katie provides of ZeRo's flirtatious messages with her are in fact real. I mean, he'd be a fool not to, considering ZeRo had confirmed their authenticity on multiple separate occasions. The real point of contention lies in the one thing Katie didn't screenshot, the ice cube thing. To reiterate, Katie stated that ZeRo asked her to masturbate with ice and take pictures, although she never actually sent said pictures due to being too embarrassed. She also didn't have a screenshot of this event, but despite this, ZeRo confessed to it being real in his July 2020 confession. Technical's response to this part of the allegation is not to say that it happened, but also not to say that it didn't happen. In fact, throughout Tech's whole video, he never denies this event taking place once. Tech states things such as he never exchanged any images, and ZeRo never exchanged images with Katie, but this could be seen as misleading because while technically true that Katie and ZeRo never exchanged graphic pictures, that's not what the allegation claimed in the first place. Katie's allegation claims that ZeRo asked for pictures, but never received any. It was never once stated in Katie's twitlonger that they actually exchanged pictures. The natural reaction to this would be, well, Tech, ZeRo confessed to asking for nude photos. How can you say it didn't happen when his confession exists? Well, Technicals has an answer for that question too, albeit an extremely flimsy one. Tech makes the claim that ZeRo's 2020 confession was actually ZeRo's suicide note, posted online for everyone to see. Now, in all likelihood, this is probably true, considering there isn't really anything to say otherwise. The only thing about it that actually matters is the fact that it raises questions about the authenticity of ZeRo's confession. Let's cut to the chase. Throughout this whole video, Tech never says that ZeRo's confession was a false one. The closest you'll get is Tech stating that the confession wouldn't be admissible in court due to it being made under extreme stress and outside pressure, and ZeRo stating that he made the confession to sabotage himself on purpose. Neither of these lines of logic actually give credence to the idea that ZeRo's confession was false, and Tech even states in his video that
nobody in this situation can know for certain besides ZeRo and Katie.
Technicals goes on to talk about how the situation would be handled in court, and quite honestly, I couldn't give a flying fuck about the legality of this situation. I think it's perfectly fine if Tech wants to talk about legality, however, I won't be discussing it for the simple reason of morality being much more important than legality in a situation like this. What's legal is not always moral, so I'll stray away from going full Phoenix Wright in this video. After discussing legality, Technicals poses the question of whether or not ZeRo's actions would classify him as a pedophile. Now, I'd like to bring up the point before going forward that when most people use the term pedophile, they aren't referring to the clinical definition for pedophilic disorder. Even when considering the dictionary definition of the word, the two most common English language dictionaries, being the Oxford and Merriam-Webster dictionaries, can't even agree on the definition of the word. While Merriam-Webster specifies that the person in question must be attracted to prepubescent children, the Oxford dictionary makes no such distinction. In my eyes at least, this is a completely pointless debate. If you believe that ZeRo is a pedo, then he is, and if you believe that ZeRo isn't a pedo, then he isn't, and both sides have their own definitions to back it up. If I had to take a page out of Pyrocynical's book, I would say, the way I see it, you gotta judge the actions, not a tag. If people just focused on the stuff that ZeRo actually admitted to doing rather than some arbitrary label, there would be loads more clarity in this case and a lot less bickering. That being said, the way Technicals tries to prove that ZeRo isn't a pedophile isn't the best. First off, he compares ZeRo to EDP445, which of course is always a great way to start.
I'm flying solo, nigga, from now on, man.
So you don't want bitches, but you want kids?
Block him, he's gone. Get him out.
Tech makes the argument that ZeRo couldn't be a pedo because unlike EDP, ZeRo only had one instance of a pedophilic action, whereas EDP was a repeat offender. I will say that ZeRo not being a known repeat offender does lend credence to the idea that he isn't a pedophile, but ultimately it doesn't prove anything definitively. His other defense for ZeRo in this section is to interview two former members of ZeRo's Smash team to disprove a tweet made by Leffen, saying that if ZeRo wasn't caught, he would still be manipulating children in the Smash community. While ultimately Leffen's tweet was pretty hyperbolic, Technical's way of trying to debunk it is kind of dumb.
Before he was canceled, he even ran an entire team of children. This would be the perfect case study if I've ever seen one. So I reached out to some of Team ZeRo to see what they had to say on the matter.
While it's nice to know that ZeRo didn't do anything creepy to the members of his team, this line of reasoning ultimately proves nothing, as, well, he just interviewed two people. There's also a second flaw with this line of reasoning. The members of Team ZeRo were all guys, and from what we've seen from ZeRo at the time, his sexual preference was for women, not men. Tech even brings up this conundrum, but only jokes about it and never actually gives a proper answer.
So what? His whole team was full of dudes. That only proves he isn't a gay Smash pedophile, Technicals. Who cares?
To which I'd respond, I guess that means you can cross off 90% of his options. You'd think he'd diversify his profile a little bit.
After this section, he moves on to discussing ZeRo's childhood and how awkward and socially unaware he was, and while I think that none of that ultimately matters in the grand scheme of things and probably shouldn't have been included in the video, giving full charitability to technicals, it probably wasn't included to be an excuse or emotional manipulation or anything like that, although I can completely understand why someone would think that. Finally, in the last portion of Technical's video, he discusses another case of alleged predatory behavior in the Smash community, namely about the player Nyro. Overall, in my opinion, this section doesn't serve to embolden ZeRo or serve as a whataboutism. It serves to compare the Smash community's reactions to ZeRo's and Nyro's situations, which, as was shown, were vastly different. When looking at this video as a whole, it clearly has some major flaws. The use of some wishy-washy language, the at times poor arguments being made, and the large amount of padding and fluff made it, in my opinion, an overall bad video. But after peeling back the layers and disregarding all of the unnecessary aspects, this video's purpose is to pose one question. Would you forgive ZeRo? Technicals would answer that question with a yes, but if you answered no like me, let me elaborate on why. Right after the release of Technical's video, ZeRo released a video of his own responding to the allegations and recommending Technical's video. The video starts off with ZeRo mentioning the Jisu Google Doc and referring his audience to Technicals to explain most of the allegations from said document. After this, finally, after more than a year since it had been released, ZeRo addresses his confession.
You have also probably heard of a so-called confession from my part. Simply put, this document is nothing more than a suicide letter that I wrote during a tremendous mental breakdown. I had fully planned to take my life right after posting that document because I pretty much lost all faith in that scenario, and I decided not just to give up but to sabotage myself on purpose. But after taking time to reflect and think properly and review all of the evidence that came forward later on, I realized this was a big plot to assassinate my character and just destroy my life.
Ugh, this again? Well, ZeRo says here that his July 2020 confession was a suicide letter and he made it to sabotage himself on purpose. This information isn't relevant at all due to him never clarifying whether or not that means he lied in his statement. If he's actually trying to imply that he completely lied in his confession, that wouldn't make any goddamn sense. We can see that in ZeRo's confession, he actually defends himself multiple times, sometimes even preemptively. This can be seen in him bringing up the Laura situation even before she accused him, where he defends himself by saying, "She never told me she was underage. She told me she was older than me. I have a screenshot of this." And there's no graphic pictures or anything either that were exchanged, and she's from another country. If ZeRo was really lying in his confession to make himself look as bad as possible, why on earth would he defend himself so much? The thing that makes the most sense here is if ZeRo was telling the truth in his confession. Also, when referring to Katie's allegations in this video, ZeRo states,
I have never received explicit images from any underage individual. I have never sent explicit images to any underage individual. I have never made travel arrangements with ulterior motives with any underage individual. I have never been touched or touched in any shape or form any underage individual. And I have never had conversations with only the intention to groom an underage individual or take advantage of them. Anything you may have heard or seen that suggests otherwise is a lie.
Notice which extremely important statement ZeRo leaves out here. There's no mention of "I have never requested explicit images from any underage individual" in this entire video. That whole spiel that ZeRo went on about what he did and didn't do falls completely null and void because it's not responding to Katie's allegations. Also, notice the last part of that statement. And I have never had conversations with only the intention to groom an underage individual or take advantage of them. It would all be well and good except for that conveniently placed "only" that changes the entire meaning of that sentence, going from "I've never groomed a minor" to, well, I didn't only groom the minor, we also talked about Smash. This video is peppered with this kind of sneaky, technicality-written lawyer weasel language, even more than his original 2020 Google Doc response. Moving on, ZeRo makes the statement that he is dealing with the situation legally. He doesn't make it especially clear what he's talking about in the video, but in reality he's referring to a lawsuit that he had filed against Jisu for her claims against him in her 2020 Google Doc. For full disclosure, I am not defending Jisu in this situation. She lied about ZeRo a fuck ton, and he probably had every right to sue her for that. I'll talk about the lawsuit more later, though. Finally, ZeRo ends off the video by announcing that he will be returning to making content on his channel as of the next day. Now can you understand why I, as well as many others, don't feel comfortable welcoming ZeRo back? He has admitted to flirting with a 14-year-old girl and requesting nude images from her. Throughout this whole video, he never actually retracts his confession and has been as intentionally vague as possible when discussing it in order to obfuscate the truth. Even if you're going with the implication that he did retract his confession, it still doesn't make any sense. Ever since his 2020 confession, ZeRo has shown no remorse over the actions that he admitted to, and I think that if you've watched this far into the video, then you've probably realized that by now. In my humble opinion, currently, ZeRo does not feel bad about the things he admitted to. He might feel bad that he got caught, but that's entirely different from being remorseful. This is why I would not welcome back ZeRo. Before moving along, I would like to discuss some DMs that got leaked on one of Technical's live streams between him and ZeRo back a couple months prior. ZeRo can be seen here quite literally scheming, almost like a cartoon villain, because you clearly know what to do.
Trust the plan, LOL, this is my field.
Also, this may be huge, but the next challenge is Katie, and the biggest question is still, who is she, and is she really who she says she is? I was thinking, if Jisoo gets cancelled, or is close to, which is very possible now, we may be able to pressure her hand to get Katie details. I have a great feeling there's manipulation in that story, and Katie herself, and since Katie is a ghost in the wind, we may be able to uncover her.
That would be groundbreaking.
Yes. So I'm saying this could be a play. Jisoo is a snake. She will throw Katie under the bus for self-preservation, if she has to. So we could use that?
Yeah, she needs to stay gutted in the process, though. I just want to lead to Katie.
Does this sound like a person who is remorseful? Essentially what ZeRo is talking about here is trying to get the general public to turn on Jisoo in order to somehow expose Katie's real identity, likely for the purpose of suing her. Now, I do find it funny that the one page of DMs that leaked made ZeRo look fucking terrible, but that begs the question, if those DMs just happened to randomly leak, what else could be in ZeRo's DMs? Just food for thought. Now, I'd like to clarify here that ZeRo's and Technical's intentions may not be the same here, as Technical's likely just wanted a statement from Katie, not to dox her. Technical's and ZeRo's videos both saw overwhelming support, with both of them maintaining pretty positive like to dislike ratios at the time. However, they were not without their detractors. Let's talk about Nick and Augie.
Please allow me to introduce myself. I'm a man of wealth and taste.
I'm the king of rock, there is none higher. Sucker MCs should call me sire. To hold my kingdom, you must choose fire. I won't stop rocking till I retire.
Now we rocked up parties and come correct. All cuts are on time and rhyme connect. Got the right to vote and we'll elect. Another rappers can't stand it, but give us respect.
AugieRFC is a YouTube commentary streamer that was primarily known for his coverage of online characters like Chris Hansen, Onision, Pokimane, EDP445, and Ethan Klein. As you might remember, Technicals had become quite friendly with a lot of the commentary community at this time, appearing on shows like Shot from the Point, The Half-Baked Podcast, and RFC After Hours. Another member of the commentary community that Tech had become well acquainted with was Nicholas DeOrio, who, if you'll remember, had collaborated with Tech with his Skyhouse video. If you're wondering what they have to do with the whole ZeRo situation, well, we'll get into that right now. On November 16th at around 7 PM Eastern Time, AugieRFC started up a stream with the purpose of going over and criticizing Technical's ZeRo video. He was joined by YouTubers Nicholas DeOrio and Bo Blacks. To summarize Augie's thoughts on Tech's video, let's look to the comment that Augie left on the stream. Hey guys, so throughout this video, myself and Nick really disagreed with Technical's main point about ZeRo and Katie, a 15-year-old girl who ZeRo flirted with and requested nude pictures of, which ZeRo himself admitted to. ZeRo claims that him admitting to this was done out of distress, as he planned to kill himself and felt that his only way to justify it would be to ruin his reputation online, and while the flirting did exist, the requesting nude pictures thing never happened. I still find this to be highly questionable from his point of view, and I disagree with him being redeemed as some good guy now. I think he's absolutely still sketchy, and while he is allowed to continue making YouTube videos, I don't think he should be seen as redeemed, like how Sky Williams was, for example. That was my main point, and I just wanted to be clear before people assume my position on this highly delicate topic. Technicals made a lot of really good points, especially at the beginning of the video. I agreed with the first 6 points Technicals brought up, as you can see in the timestamps, but the 7th point I don't agree with, and unfortunately, it's the biggest point made by far. Essentially, the Katie section of the video is the only point of contention with Nick and Augie. Whenever they reach that section of Tech's video, Technicals asks to call into the stream and talk to Nick, and here we are provided with our very first debate of the whole saga. To not risk retreading everything 1,000 times, I'm only going to be discussing parts of this debate that I find notable, not every single point made. Nick's initial criticism of Technical's video was how Tech's emotional interview about ZeRo's suicide attempt was sandwiched in the middle of discussing Katie's allegations. He states that Tech did this to poison the well around Katie's story and emotionally manipulate the audience.
Sup, dude? Nick, you're a fucking dumbass. I swear to God.
I think you're a dumbass. Why are you leveraging so much on this fucking story? I'm not saying he didn't attempt to commit suicide. I'm saying you just outlined a huge fucking allegation, and then you transition to, well, the reason why that he said that he did it is because he was gonna fucking kill himself. And then the next segment of this video is you, like, having a really fucking, like, serious encounter talking about how he was suicidal. Why didn't you finish talking about the allegation before you jumped into he was suicidal?
I'm gonna fucking finish it after that! What do you mean? You watched the whole thing, didn't you?
Yeah, it feels like a weird emotional blackmail right off the beginning.
Technical's response to this was to say that the placement of this interview was to provide never-before-seen context about ZeRo's confession.
And then you're like, okay, now that we've properly poisoned the well, let's start talking about those allegations of that 14-year-old.
The well?
Well, what do you call a fucking huge emotional outburst in the middle of the fucking video that's going over the receipts?
This is fucking context that didn't exist prior to this video.
Nobody knew he killed himself prior to your video?
Nobody knew that he was going to attempt to kill himself after posting this.
Didn't he do a whole interview about suicidal thoughts already?
Yeah, but that was the relapse in March. I'm talking about the initial.
Yeah, so when I posted the very last thing I posted, which was I think it was like that thing on Twitter, or I forget, but it was like the very last thing I posted on Twitter. Actually, I was gonna kill myself right there.
If you can find this context anywhere else, go for it.
To be fully charitable to Tech here, I would have to say that while the interview was poorly placed in the video and definitely should have come after the discussion of the allegations, there's no way to prove that Tech was trying to emotionally manipulate the audience, no matter how fishy it may seem. An accusation of manipulation like this is heavily reliant on knowing the person's intent, and for Technicals, there's no smoking gun proof of that, meaning that the talk of Tech emotionally manipulating the audience can be safely put in the category of speculation. That being said, Tech does say to Augie that he gets where Augie is coming from when he says that the interview should have been moved to the end.
I don't have an issue. My thing is, I don't have an issue with the segment. I just think like the pacing of it is the problem here. So you're going from huge allegation, terrible thing, to emotional segment, to then the DMs. I think it should have been, here's the allegation,
this guy's your friend.
here's the DMs,
Like, I
and
absolutely
then the interview at the
understand
end. That's what I'm just saying.
I get where you're coming from. Okay, like that.
It's
valid that you think that, but I think it's still.
The next point of contention on this stream is that Nick disagreed with Tech marketing his video as a case closed type deal. This is a criticism that I 100% agree with. The ZeRo case was nowhere close to being closed, and parts of it were either still developing or left entirely ambiguous. Tech states that he marketed the video this way just for the detective aesthetic, which in my opinion is kinda dumb, because he's sacrificing a little bit of accuracy for a minor gain in aesthetics. Moving on further into the stream, we have this strange interaction where Nick is presenting a hypothetical about a 20-year-old sexting with a 15-year-old, and when Nick asks Technicals if he would be okay with that, Tech gives this response.
Well, the thing about ZeRo's case is that he was exposed to sex when he was 5 and he was molested as a child.
Yeah, I don't care about that shit. That happens with a lot of pedophiles, and tons of people are molested that don't touch kids.
Here, Tech is making the argument that ZeRo isn't a pedophile because he had a rough childhood, and because of that, he was mentally stunted at the time of him messaging Katie. After this, Nick, Augie, and Tech all go into the discourse of if ZeRo's a pedophile or not. I've already made my thoughts on this clear, but it's notable that while Tech states that he doesn't think ZeRo's a pedo, and Nick and Augie both say that they don't know whether he's a pedo, they all agree that it's not an unreasonable conclusion to come to. Later on, Nick also talks about the Nyro section of Tech's video and calls it a huge whatabout. My view on this is that since you can't really prove it's a whatabout without knowing Tech's intentions, and like all people, Tech is innocent until proven guilty, we should assume that Tech had no malintent with his Nyro section. After a long span of arguing about the Team ZeRo interviews for God knows how long, where neither Tech nor Nick understood what each other were talking about, Augie finally came in to moderate and helped give a resolution to that discussion. After this, Nick and Technicals argue over Tech's usage of the term slip-up to describe ZeRo's sexting with a minor.
Why do you call it a slip-up?
Oh, so now you're mad with my wording.
No! Alright, come on, dude! What are you insinuating? Why are you calling it a slip-up?
If you're investigating someone, okay, Nicholas DeOrio...
What is he slipping up from?
Slipping up means getting caught in the act. Slipping up.
Getting caught in what act? What do you think he is?
Red-handed.
Red-handed
This is
doing
just
what,
verbiage.
Technicals?
You're just arguing about verbiage. Actually, go kill yourself. Oh my god, bro.
Dude, you're calling it a slip-up. What do you want
Yeah, it
from
would
me,
be it would be a slip-up if someone caught him fucking a kid. Yeah, I do think that's true.
Full disclosure, I think that this was just poor wording on Tech's part, and I don't think that he intended for it to be some kind of loaded term considering his other arguments. He would clarify this later in the call.
So, like, do you see why slip-up is a really weird choice of words?
Yeah, I can see why, but
is slip-up the implication that he's previously done something, like, that you would consider
No. At that point, it's semantics, because when I'm saying he hasn't slipped up in 7 years, I'm saying there's no... Like, slip up would be, oh, he fucked up, and yeah, he kind of showed his tendencies that he likes children, and we can now point to this. That would be a slip up in...
So if I reworded that in probably an optically better tone, and I said something along the lines of, regardless of whether this had or hadn't occurred initially, we know for a fact that there's no example of this happening in the last 7 years.
A little later on, Tech makes a point that completely bewilders me. When Augie tells Tech that he wouldn't go to bat for ZeRo nearly as hard as Tech did, Tech responds by saying,
"If he sent his cock to that minor, me neither."
This is a very strange point to get hung up on, as when talking about stuff like ZeRo's Ice Cube incident, the fact that Katie never actually sent ZeRo any naked pictures doesn't make ZeRo any less bad. The action of him asking for them in the first place shows clearly that he wanted them. His intent was still there. It doesn't matter in the slightest if Katie didn't send the pictures that ZeRo wanted. He would still be just as fucked up for wanting them. After this, Augie questions Tech about the leaked DMs with ZeRo that I've previously talked about in this video, and Tech clarifies that he was not trying to dox Katie, but was just trying to get a statement from her.
Was the objective there to, like, remove the anonymity to the victim of...
No, it was not to dox, it was to simply get a statement from her, so it could be a more objective piece, but everyone was ducking me, and yeah.
I believe you, because I know you're not, like, a piece of shit. Like, you're not... If you got her information, you wouldn't name her in the video with her legitimate name, right?
Mm-hmm.
Later in the stream, Nick goes on to have a debate with a small YouTuber named Jessica Pizzle, where she tries to compare Nick's arguments to another completely unrelated situation, to the point where even Technicals ends up siding with Nick. The only salvageable thing said in this whole debate is Technicals agreeing that if someone does a pedophilic action, there's always a danger that they will reoffend. A bit after this, Technicals announces that he's gonna leave the call, and Nick and Tech give their final closing statements.
I don't know.
I think we just disagree on the psychology of it, like how much it contributes, but other than that, I think we primarily agree on most of the points.
I just want to leave this sentence off by saying I don't have enough information, knowing this whole situation, to say that ZeRo is a pedophile. I make that very clear, intentionally. From the debate that we were having, we were arguing it in, like, the understanding that, like, that really happened with the Ice Cube stuff. Otherwise, there's no argument to be had. It's shady, but not nearly as shady as whether he's, like, trying to solicit news from a minor. So that's the understanding. I do think that people should do their own research on the subject, and people should watch your video and come to their own conclusion following it. Just to be clear, I just want to put that in the perfect English possible, so it can't possibly be misconstrued.
I mean,
I appreciate
there's
that
been no
take. That's a
slip-ups
good take.
And I don't think Technicals is pro-pedophilia because we have a world.
No.
What? She didn't even say that. We're gonna clip that now.
I don't think anybody thought that.
It's good that he says that. Fuck.
Overall, I would say that no one really won this debate. While I would agree with the core message of what Nick was saying a lot more than I would with Technicals, this debate was marred by both Nick and Tech not really understanding each other's arguments and becoming hostile based off of miscommunications. However, Tech and Nick ended it off as friends and mostly agreed to disagree on the unresolved arguments. Based on the end of this debate, it seems like the topic would probably die out and everyone involved would move on and not focus on this story anymore unless new developments were presented. We would just have to wait and see. Two days later, on November 18th, AugieRFC gave a small addendum to the situation on his livestream, which was later uploaded as a clip to his YouTube titled, "ZeRo probably lied in Technical's video, and here's why." This clip was primarily focused around Augie attempting to debunk the notion that ZeRo lied in his confession, and here, in my opinion, Augie gives a fair take. I won't go too in-depth here because he pretty much gives the same take that I discussed previously in this video, but the basics of it were that Augie pointed out ZeRo defends himself in his confession twit longer, meaning that the notion that ZeRo completely lied in his confession is extremely unlikely. Augie also brings up how Technicals did not include the entirety of ZeRo's confession in his original video, only showing around 35% of the full text. The result of this being that you could not see ZeRo's defense of himself in Technicals' video. Now notably, Augie makes it very clear that he doesn't think Technicals maliciously cropped ZeRo's statement.
I'm by no means saying Technicals removed the other context maliciously. Obviously what happened here is Technicals removed the other part simply because he's talking about Katie, so he's only going to show the information that's relevant to that segment. So I'm by no means saying that he did a malicious crop or something like that. That's not what I'm arguing at all.
Keep this in the back of your head. One day later, Augie uploaded episode 9 of his paid show, Spilled Milk, in which he further discusses the ZeRo situation with his co-host, a YouTuber named X8, or more commonly known by his real name of Connor. Keep his name in the back of your head going forward. In this video, Augie and Connor actually praise Technicals for his handling of the backlash around his video and say that the dialogue surrounding Tech's video was making YouTube a whole lot more interesting.
So shout out to Technicals. We still like Technicals. No bad blood or drama at all.
Yeah, it's nice to have a fucking topic that's not just like a circle jerk sometimes.
Yeah, a topic that's not a circle jerk, but also a topic that's not like burning like bridge, John Swan level, everybody hates each other.
A few days later, on November 22nd, Nicholas DeOrio uploaded clips from a Twitch stream that he did about the quartering to YouTube, in which he made a comment about the ZeRo situation, saying that while he doesn't like that ZeRo is coming back, he doesn't think that everyone who's welcoming him back condones his actions. Later that same day, The Hooked Podcast, which consisted of the YouTubers AugieRFC, Dumpy, Aiden Projects, and Cyrus, uploaded a new podcast guest starring up-and-coming commentator and at the time potential Drama Alert host, Willie Mack's show. In this video, Willie laments that the community's biggest video, being Technical's ZeRo video, has to be about such a dark subject matter. Augie ends up pushing back on this, again talking about how interesting the discourse surrounding Tech's video was.
There's so much nuance to the whole discussion with ZeRo, right? Like, it's not just one or the other. Like, you have to, you have to really think about, what's all going on. You have to gather all the details, collect the story. Pedo shit is fun, Willie. I think you need to embrace pedo shit more.
Okay. Finally, to cap off this segment, 2 days later on November 24th, the day before Thanksgiving, Technicals uploaded a video titled Ban Nairo. While this video is mostly about Nairo, Technicals does clarify some things from his ZeRo video at the start of this one, namely what he was welcoming ZeRo back to, and why he included the section about Nairo in his original ZeRo video. This whole period of about 8 days between ZeRo's return and the day before Thanksgiving consisted of agreeing to disagree mostly, and discussing the situation while staying friendly and keeping the peace. But soon enough, that would all be turned right on its head, and the community would not stay peaceful for much longer. That same day at around 5:30 p.m., Willie Mack's show uploaded a video to Twitter with the title, "The Most Obvious Problems with Technical's Video for Me." This video is a short splicing together of clips from Technical's ZeRo and Nairo videos, along with some commentary from Willie. Willie makes the arguments that it doesn't matter how long ago ZeRo did what he did, and it doesn't matter that ZeRo's married. He also questions why, if Technicals thinks that ZeRo's not a current danger to children, he should still be banned from Smash events. Now, that's all well and good, but after this, Willie kinda drops the ball. He tries to say that Technicals was trying to welcome ZeRo back to Smash events.
First off, just to clarify, when I say welcome back ZeRo, I mean welcome back to uploading content, not to Smash events. Despite me never making that argument, I think it's worth clearing up.
Dude, that was you making the argument. That literally was you making the argument. You're walking it back. That is a complete walk back. You're trying to sound smart, but you literally walked it back right there. Admit it. Oh, dude, this video makes this video so much worse.
Technical's whole Welcome Back ZeRo thing was to welcome ZeRo back to the online community and to uploading YouTube videos again. I have to agree with Tech here. He quite literally never made that argument. Now, ultimately, this critique doesn't seem like anything super special until you see what it started. A Twitter user responded to Willie's video essentially reiterating what I just said. Now, Willie did respond to this comment, but ultimately, that isn't the part of this exchange that really matters. Nicholas DeOrio ended up responding to this comment with a quote tweet questioning Technical's assertions about ZeRo's confession. Technicals ended up responding to Nick with a quote tweet of his own, saying that if ZeRo's confession was ever proven true, he can be the first person that Nick cancels. Nick responded in a comment saying, "Tech, if it ever happens again, your channel's gonna be a crater. That's not really my point." Nick attached to this reply a screenshot of Tech agreeing with Willie Mack that ZeRo was a threat to children during the time that he messaged Katie. Technicals replied to this by saying, "You're so obtuse, and don't get me started on your weight. I'm not arguing psychology with someone who openly declares they don't give a shit about it. Go cry about Ethan Klein or something." Nick would respond to Tech's reply by saying, "I mean, you're running around playing defense super hard for this guy and crying about Augie's videos nobody watches. I'll keep making videos on H3, and you keep explaining 15 different ways how ZeRo's childhood trauma explains why he solicited nudes from a 14-year-old. Notably, this reply contained a screenshot that Nick had taken from his DMs with Technicals. These DMs pretty much boil down to Nick asking for Tech's interpretation on ZeRo saying that he sabotaged himself, with Tech's interpretation being that ZeRo might not have actually remembered the conversations themselves, but just confessed based on the screenshots that Katie had provided. Technicals responds by getting upset at Nick for leaking DMs, in his words, even though it's not necessary. This is seemingly where Tech burned the bridge with Nick after his DMs were leaked. The Twitter feud would continue on, and on Thanksgiving, Technicals posted a tweet saying, "Happy Thanksgiving. Take this one day to not talk about fucking kids and fuck up some good food. Just thankful Nick won't be there so I can get a plate this year." In response to this, Nick tweeted showing that he had gotten unfollowed by Technicals. This leads into the day after Thanksgiving, where, as the Twitter war was still going on, Technicals posted this legendary tweet, quote-tweeting Nick's aforementioned tweet saying, "I tweeted that and immediately had sex. Can't say the same for you." I'll take this opportunity to stop reading tweets and go into the next section of the video. On November 26th at around 7:30 p.m., AugieRFC started up a stream called Thanksgiving Tension. Technicals, Nicholas DeOrio, ZeRo Argument Gets Wild. RFC After Hours, episode 294. This stream features the creators AugieRFC, Nicholas DeOrio, Edwin's Generation, Flamenco TV, Tipster, Ricky Berwick, Turkey Tom, and Willie Mac Show, and each of them play a part in this stream. Augie initially wanted to cover a few topics on this stream, but as you'll soon see, one topic consumed the entirety of the airtime. Augie kicked off the stream by reading out Katie's 2020 twitlonger in its entirety. Augie also reads out all of ZeRo's confession in full and reiterates that ZeRo clearly defended himself in it and that he doesn't think it was all made up. He also goes back over the leaked DMs between ZeRo and Tech and comes to the conclusion that ZeRo has no remorse for his actions, which I would say, from what we've seen so far, is a fair statement to make.
Folks, tell me honestly if ZeRo really gives a shit about this situation. If he has any remorse whatsoever. No, course not. A fucking course not, alright? Don't be fucking stupid with me. I'm sick and tired of walking over eggshells in this stupid fucking story. There's no fucking empathy here.
A bit later, Turkey Tom joins the call and tries to establish a baseline. He asks everyone in the call a question. If he, at the time being 19 years old, were to sext with a 14-year-old girl, what would they think about it? He goes down the list of everyone in the call and gets responses from all of them.
I want to take the reins here for a second and just ask
go ahead.
a simple question of each person in this chat. If I was caught talking to a 14-year-old girl, asking her to shove ice up her pussy and send me pictures of it, regardless if the girl did it, how would each person in this call feel about that? Augie, how would you feel about that?
You would be a sick fuck, and I would never talk to you again, and I would fucking make that abundantly clear in my public platforms.
Boblax, how would you feel about that?
I'd be confused, mind-fucked, angry, and,
Edwin?
No, dude, that's gonna be a hard no. I mean, oh, jeez, no, dude.
Okay, Tipster, what do you think?
Oh, God.
I would think that you're a massive fucking degenerate, and I would have no problem burning that bridge.
But is it just degenerate? Is there another word you maybe want to use? If a 19-year-old tries to...
You're a pedophile. You're a fucking pedo.
Okay,
you're a fucking pedo. You're attracted to children. You want children.
Flamenco, what do you think? What do you think?
You're a massive fucking retard.
Okay, just retard? Really? Just retard?
Yeah, massive fucking retard. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I think you're a retard.
After this, Flamenco TV has a bit of a moment, saying that since ZeRo had a bad childhood, what he did just wasn't as bad.
The idea of me as a 19-year-old talking to a 14-year-old is fucking repulsive. What the fuck do you have in common with a 14-year-old, ZeRo? Tell me. Tell me what you have in common with that 14-year-old.
Here's the question, though. Why would it be bad for you to do that?
Because it's fucking disgusting. Why would it be bad?
Because you know it's wrong, right?
Oh.
Now, if you've been on my channel for any amount of time, you might know that I'm not too big a fan of Flamenco TV. In fact, I have 2 videos discussing why I don't like him in great detail, so if you're interested in learning more about that, you might want to go check those 2 out. In all seriousness though, this is probably one of the worst clips of Flamenco out there, and everyone kind of forgot about it after this situation ended. I'll clarify that his position on ZeRo is that he should be able to come back to content creation, but should have his communications heavily monitored, but it looks strange regardless. After this, Flamenco and Nicholas DeOrio have a heated debate, and honestly, it's too good not to show some highlights from.
You
How do you
can't
show
say
that?
Someone changed. You have to show it.
How do you show that?
I don't know, Flamenco.
Well, then
but
what the fuck are you asking him for, dude?
I'm asking him because if
You're
you
asking
can't
him
show
for a
it,
thing
then
you can't even fucking explain. That's a fucking retarded argument.
Flamenco, you're saying somebody's good because you don't know they're bad. That's not an argument, bro. That's bias.
I think that...
Okay, bunk those, isn't
Flamenco,
it?
just admit that Turkey Tom, if he fucked a 14-year-old, would be a fucking pedo, dude. You just get 9K.
He knows
You want to drop
better.
below it? If you think that Turkey Tom would be a pedophile for fucking...
Oh my god!
If
Nick,
you think
are
that
so
Turkey Tom...
fucking thick-headed. It's so fucking painful, dude.
No, you're literally being bad faith. So if you said that Turkey Tom set you a
fuck am I being bad faith? The fuck am I being bad faith?
If you just said that Turkey Tom
What
set
fucking way am I being bad faith? Answer the fucking question, fat shit. It's the ad hoc. When I'm getting frustrated and I'm saying that when you're just...
Can you say re for me, Flamenco?
Maybe he not explicitly condoned it, but he
He
endorsed
didn't condone it in a fucking way, dude.
No one's
He
arguing he condoned it.
He beat him that it was wrong. Yeah, I'm laughing, so I'm right. Like, holy shit, Nick. Are you... I can't fucking engage with him. He's
I'm
just
not
gonna, like,
interrupting you.
tackle and... Oh, my God.
Can you answer the question?
What was the question, buddy? I'm actually just fucking close to completely just getting rid of you in any sort of context and talking to you, dude.
Jesus Christ, should I call the police?
You are a...
Minecraft.
Nick, you're a fucking faggot.
Yeah,
Whoa!
Hey,
Dude, Edwin's on Twitch!
Now, okay, back to serious. Around an hour and 17 minutes into the stream, Turkey Tom rejoins the call and starts alleging that Technical said he was going to sue Jisoo for promoting underage drinking.
One of the things that Technical is suing Jisoo for is supposedly promoting underage drinking.
However, we would find out later that this was completely false, and Tom had misremembered something Tech said.
Are you still suing Jisoo over like the underage drinking thing? I forgot. What
That was never a point.
That was never a point?
I DM'd Turkey Tom. I was like, "Why did you say this? Where the fuck did you hear this?" And he literally just conflated some random point that I brought up in a video, and then like said it was a part of the lawsuit. That was never.
A little later into the stream, Augie goes over the Twitter flame war from the past few days, but interestingly, he adds a little bit more context to one of Technical's statements in the DM that Nick showed. You might notice that under what Tech says about ZeRo in the DM, he includes a little line about Augie, saying, "Also, if you guys keep making shitty arguments like Augie's, I probably won't just ignore them, but I respect your right to do so." In response to this part of Tech's message, Augie verbally reveals his own DMs with Technicals to show Tech contradicting himself. I'm not going to leave a comment, but I cut that bottom part so I wouldn't have to highlight the segment I'm reading, and I had already debunked the Laura story already. I wasn't hiding it.
Yeah, I figured. I never thought you were being malicious or dishonest. I just figured it was because the info wasn't relevant to the segment. I made sure to clarify that multiple times.
Also, you're equally brave to stick to your guns with how much blind shit you're getting. Sorry you're catching strays.
LOL, I'm used to it. I had a pretty nuclear take on the pyrocynical situation last year when that came out, and boy did I get it. Then I showed him a screenshot showing how many dislikes I got back then.
I appreciate the pushback. Makes me actually have to work somewhat for a consistent argument. Augie then shows a Twitter post that he had made a couple days prior where he questions Technicals about this contradiction. Tech's response to this was, well, considering what we know now, not the best.
And he wrote me and he lies here. He says, I did. I told you I wasn't gonna make a comment and then told you why your argument was wrong. Go look at it right now. Well, I looked at it right now. I just did on stream. I read it. And he's wrong.
It can be assumed that Tech didn't have a clear memory of the DMs and didn't bother to fact check by looking at the DMs before tweeting about them. Now, after this, Augie takes a look at some more of the Twitter war, but in all honesty, it's not too important for understanding the greater situation in this video. What is important, however, is the next topic that Augie covers on stream. That being Technical's twin brother, Pixel Drink. Now, this is going to require some explaining. Pixel Drink is an online content creator boasting an impressive 179,000 subscribers on YouTube and 1.2 million followers on TikTok. He's someone who got popular for doing these gay-ass anime impressions on TikTok.
PogChamp? I'm not quite sure what that is, but if it'll make you happy, then sure. You can be my little PogChamp.
Can't say I'm a fan. He was also featured somewhat prominently on Tech's channel, with him being a part of some of Tech's videos.
Bigger. 6 letters. 6-letter word. It's gotta be Nick!
How he's involved in this story, however, is a little less comedic. You see, Pixel does not have a clean record. Back in 2016 and 2017, when Pixel was 19, he was in a group chat with its members ranging from 19 at the oldest, being Pixel's age, to 13 at the youngest. Now, that's all well and good until we see that Pixel was doing some very peculiar things in the group chat, particularly two things. 1. Pixel was drawing hentai of underage members of the group chat. Now, of course, this is bad for obvious reasons, but let's move on to the next thing. 2. Pixel flashed the group chat with his dick out. Again, something that is bad for obvious reasons. The way these allegations would first be brought to public attention was by a twitlonger from July of 2020 that would discuss these two allegations. Pixel would respond to these allegations in the same day with a video titled Goodbye, in which he admits to these allegations, however, with a very important caveat. He makes sure to clarify that these things that he did were not meant as a sexually gratifying thing for him.
So I'm gonna be going to therapy because there's a lot of shit that I need to work through. Not only like my immaturity, even though it's better now, there's still a lot of shit that's like going on. I'm not going to therapy to fix my pedophilia because I don't like kids. I really want to stress that. Like, I did all of this because I was immature and it was for a joke. I'm not some weirdo pedophile, okay? And if you think that, I think you're probably like, you just like, that's just what you want to believe. Like, nothing I can say will change your mind on that.
These were intended as shock value jokes, and while still incredibly wrong that Pixel did them in the first place, with the evidence that's available, I am not comfortable saying that he has any kind of attraction to minors or anything like that. While Pixel may have been a complete retard, if you consider the nuance of the situation, you'll realize that, in all likelihood, he's not a pedophile, and while I can't blame you if you're skeptical of that explanation, I'd like to give Pixel the benefit of the doubt here, as I don't really see anything that definitively suggests that Pixel has an attraction to these people. Now, you might be asking yourself, where does this relate to the main topic of this video? Well, on December 26th, Connor, who you might remember from earlier in the video, posted a Twitter thread detailing the allegations against Pixel, but also attempting to connect the story to the topic of ZeRo and technicals. So I just got sent this crazy Reddit article by some random that has interesting information that leads me to believe why Tech is dying so hard on the argument he is with ZeRo. So basically, Tech's brother got busted in a group chat Tech owned where Tech's brother would post nude images of himself and lolly he'd allegedly drawn as well. He claims he was the only adult in the chat at the time, with the ages of the people in the chat ranging between 13 and 19, Tech's brother being the oldest at 19 years old. In response, Tech's brother admitted to it, saying he was immature at the time and has grown/knows better. Because of this, I believe it's fair to say in order for Tech to throw ZeRo under the bus, he would also have to throw his own brother under. This line of reasoning was then repeated by Augie, as well as other members of the commentary community. Now, some people, including technicals, complained about the commentators bringing family into it, and in most situations I would agree. However, in this situation specifically, Tech's brother is a public figure, having even more subscribers than Augie and technicals combined. My problem with his brother being brought up is that I don't think it connects to the ZeRo situation at all. The argument that for Tech to throw ZeRo under the bus, he would also have to throw his own brother under doesn't make any damn sense, considering how different the things ZeRo admitted to are from the things that Pixel admitted to. ZeRo admitted to engaging in sexual activity with a minor online, something that would absolutely be sexually gratifying. Pixel admitted to sending inappropriate images to a group chat that had minors in it for shock humor, something that, if we are to believe Pixel, was not intended to be sexually gratifying. These two situations are not comparable, and to try to say that the situation with his brother influenced technicals when covering ZeRo, A, is just speculation with no evidence, which ultimately proves nothing, and B, doesn't make all too much sense to begin with. Now, even though I disagree with Augie and Connor when it comes to Tech's brother, I will say that Tech's handling of it was not very good. Now, Tech's actual response to Connor was fair enough. He quote-tweeted Connor's thread and gave a response about his brother drawing the minors, saying, "Yeah, I'll answer this. This happened 5 years ago in a group chat. My brother did not start this. It was done by others in MS Paint as a joke because they mutually thought it was funny. Then my brother joined in for the laughs. I had no involvement and apologies were made a year ago." The big problem with this response was not the actual text technicals tweeted. It was the two images that he included with the tweet. He included two not safe for work images drawn by the minors from the group chat, one being a very crude MS Paint drawing and the other being more detailed. This was obviously very inappropriate, which I assume Tech realized as he soon deleted the tweet. Now, skipping ahead to the next day, at 5:03 PM, Keemstar would post a brief Twitter video summarizing his thoughts on the situation as a neutral party.
Quite frankly, I've seen enough of you three fighting. I'm sick of it, alright? Here's the truth, alright? You want a third-party opinion on all this? Here it is, alright? Technicals should have called out ZeRo. You fucked up. You should have called him out more, alright? When it comes to your brother, you should have called him out more. But here's the thing, Augie and Nick, It's his goddamn brother! It's his brother! You're supposed to defend your family. You can't criticize him too much for the brother thing because it is his brother, all right? So y'all need to just agree to disagree, shake hands, and be on with it.
Now, the actual video isn't really that important. What is important, however, is what came of it. Augie responded to Keem with his own Twitter video, which we can't see now due to Augie's tweets deleting weekly to prevent mass flagging, which ends up making most of these Twitter arguments from this time look like this. Technicals then quote tweeted Augie's video saying, "Keep comparing my brother to the ZeRo case. You're digging your own hole." This ended up spawning a 14-tweet long argument between Augie and Tech where they argued about each other's popularity. Tech also accused Augie of backtracking something he'd said in his initial coverage of ZeRo. Finally, Keemstar joins back in and responds with this Twitter video.
I'm inviting both of you to come on my live stream to debate this tonight.
Now, for the first 5 minutes of the debate, Augie and Tech pretty much just go over the basics of the situation. However, around 5 minutes in, Technicals brings up something that we're going to talk about just a little bit later. Skipping forward a little bit, in an attempt to try and discredit Augie, Technicals brings up a tweet Augie had made a few months prior, which states, "You only think two high schoolers dating is a crime because you're afraid of Twitter. Very few people in real life think about this. 18 to 15 is fine. That's literally my only point." Tech then takes that and boils it down to Augie's defending adults being with minors.
In the context of a high school relationship, yes, 18 to 15 is fine.
So an adult with a minor is fine, is what you're saying?
No, I'm
That's
talking
literally
about high
what you're
schoolers.
saying.
Well, I mean, legally,
Is
yes,
an
an 18-year-old would be an
not
adult, but I'm saying in a high school context, then
Yeah.
yeah, I agree with that.
No matter what you think about Augie's opinion, boiling it down this much is dumb. Well, yes, an 18 to 15 relationship is an adult with a minor, and I personally find it weird. If you were to boil down Augie's argument as much as Tech did, you would have to say that it's bad for someone who turns 18 in one day to date someone who's already 18. After this, Technicals tries another dig at Augie. This time he brings up a tweet that Augie had liked that defended someone engaged in a 1914 relationship. However, Augie does bring up the good point that liking a tweet doesn't automatically mean you endorse or even agree with it.
How about a 5-year age gap? Let's go to my next one.
That's terrible.
Oh, it's terrible? Okay, that's weird. Here's this tweet right here. If you go to the likes,
the one like
Wait,
on
I
this
say
tweet
this?
is from Red Fox Comms.
So I liked the tweet in 2020, and that's indicative of my values? You don't think I just fucking
No,
casually
what do you
saw
think
and didn't
about it?
think too shit about it? I disagree.
What do you think about that tweet?
19-year-old and a 14-year-old? No, that's absolutely wrong and pedophilic.
Tech also fails to mention in the debate that this tweet was a reply to one of Augie's own tweets, meaning that he probably just liked one of his replies without reading too much into it. Next, Augie goes on the offense and starts criticizing Tech's brother Pixel. Now here, Tech claims that he isn't defending his brother, but that really isn't true. Technicals absolutely did defend his brother, however, his defense makes sense. Being fully charitable to his brother, he did all the weird shit in the group chat jokingly, and while this doesn't exonerate Pixel, it shows his actions were not predatory in nature. It's also worth mentioning that in this section, Augie tries to say that Tech's brother drew not safe for work art of the 13-year-old in the group chat, which apparently was not true. The art that Pixel made, as far as we know, didn't depict the 13-year-old, but instead a different minor in the group chat. After this, Augie and Tech had a really awkward moment where Augie asked Tech a question about whether the context of the minors in the group chat drawing sexual images before Tech's brother mattered when rendering moral judgment on him. Whether it was because of Tech not understanding or Tech trying to evade, the answer he gave did not actually answer Augie's question, and because of this, Augie flipped out.
Does the context make what your brother did better or worse? Can you answer that question?
If the context is that he's doing it, I'm answering it right now and you're fucking interrupting me. If the context is that someone is doing something like this for sexual gratification, obviously that would make it worse than it being a joke.
Yeah.
Do you not agree with that?
We would agree with that, but I'm talking.
Yeah,
I didn't bring that
context
point
matters.
up.
So context does matter,
off.
doesn't it?
Fuck off, you're being disingenuous. I didn't bring that point up.
How is that you just agreed with me?
I wasn't talking about the sexual gratification. I was talking about whether or not the minors participating in the fucking jokes made it any better or worse. You just completely changed the conversation.
Now you're spurging.
Notice how he's bringing up completely different fucking points than what we were just talking about. He can't answer the question because he knows it makes him look bad as fuck.
Something similar would happen again later in the debate, where Technical said that Augie tried to say that he was being deceptive by leaving out a portion of Katie's twit longer, which is something that Augie literally never said.
Wait, ZeRo got catfished too?
Yeah, there was a Laura
ZeRo got catfished by Laura.
But you did
that's a
try to
different
say
case.
that I was being deceptive by blocking that part out when just reading
What?
the Katie allegation.
Are
in the
you?
confession.
Wait!
Yeah,
this is the
when I
worst lie
already
you've ever
addressed
told
it.
yet. Wait,
I'm
it's in my
not lying.
DMs. Open up your fucking DMs. Watch my fucking video.
If you'll remember back to the video that Technicals is referencing, Augie made it very clear that he didn't think Technicals was being malicious by cropping the twit longer.
I'm by no means saying Technicals removed the other context maliciously. Obviously what happened here is Technicals removed the other part simply because he's talking about Katie, so he's only going to show the information that's relevant to that segment.
Now, all that being said, it's no secret that Augie didn't conduct himself very well in this debate. He spurred out, and while it's completely understandable to be emotional in a situation like this, it can lead to some very awkward moments, and most of the time it doesn't really help in terms of public opinion, as seen by the poll Keemstar set up to determine the winner. No matter if the things he was saying were right or not, his performance in this debate was already doomed in the court of public opinion. Now, there's another reason that Augie's performance in this debate isn't looked on very well. You see, Tech completely blindsided Augie with something he clearly wasn't prepared to talk about. It's that thing I said we'd talk about later. Let's talk about Zaptie. Zaptie was a commentary YouTuber who was popular from mid-2016 to early 2017. He was known for making videos above the standard quality of content back in the day, taking clear inspiration from creators like Colossal is Crazy and I Hate Everything. He was also a part of a popular podcast at the time called Hot Wet Soup, which featured Elvis the Alien and Bionic Pig, which was seen as a more chill alternative to Keemstar's baited podcast. He would cover topics back in the day such as Lion Maker and Tana Mojo, with him even being featured on Pyrocynical's channel with a video called So Bad It's Good, which has accumulated more than 800,000 views as of 2023. Now, you might have noticed that when speaking about Zaptie, I used the past tense, and that's for a very good reason. You see, if you were to go back and look into Zaptie today, you would find that his Twitter's been privated and his YouTube channel's been deleted, with the only way to watch his videos being on archive channels. Now, what on earth caused this? Well, you see, back in 2017, some very serious allegations were levied at Zaptie by a few individuals. Two YouTubers named I'm Alex and DeOrio Anthony, and a Twitter user named Heather. These allegations ranged widely from allegations of Zaptie being a sociopath, allegations of Zaptie being bad to his friends, and even allegations of pedophilia. While that sociopathy allegation, mainly coming from I'm Alex, was somewhat flimsy to begin with and not super concrete, the allegation of Zaptie being snaky to his friends appears to be very real, and Zaptie has since apologized. With those two out of the way, that leaves only the pedophile allegations to discuss. You see, when Zaptie was 20 years old, he met a girl named Heather and became involved in a relationship with her. Originally, Heather's age was 17 years old. However, later down the line, Heather confessed to Zaptie that her real age was in fact 16 years old. After this, Zaptie was seemingly able to justify their relationship for a little bit longer, but then broke things off. The things that they are confirmed to have done when they were talking are sexting, Heather sending Zaptie a not nude but provocative image which Zaptie then saved to his phone, and Zaptie expressing that he wanted to meet up with and have sex with Heather. It's not clear if these things happened before or after the girl confessed that she was 16, but to be safe, we'll assume that they were still sexting when the age was 16. This puts Zaptie at 20 and Heather at 16 for a time when they were together. Now, all this being said, the public would only hear about these allegations when I'm Alex went on to commandeer the Hot Wet Soup podcast along with Elvis and Pig, releasing a video called The End on February 2nd, 2017. In this video, Alex would go on to outline vague accusations against Zaptie, like the aforementioned sociopath allegation, as well as alleging that Zaptie was in relationships with 4 other girls who were 16 and 17 years old. The fallout resulting from this podcast would lead to Zaptie leaving the internet completely after giving a few responses on Twitter and Reddit. After Zaptie had left the internet, rumors began circulating, now claiming Heather's real age to be 13. However, as far as we know, Zaptie had no way of knowing that she was 13, and Heather even clarified later on that she was actually 14 turning 15 at the time, not 13, and that Zaptie did not know her real age. Nevertheless, this, along with the poor handling of the situation by pretty much everyone involved, led to the popular narrative around Zaptie being that he was a sociopath pedophile, when, in all likelihood, he was not. This all led up to Zaptie being harassed and doxxed when he tried to come back to YouTube in 2018. This would lead to him deleting his own YouTube channel and leaving the internet yet again. Just to be 100% clear, Zaptie has admitted to the things that he did and apologized on multiple occasions, admitting that what he did was wrong. He clearly felt remorse for the things that happened and has owned up to his mistakes since then. Now, you might be asking yourself right now, how in God's green earth does this even remotely relate to ZeRo? Well, you see, in late 2019, Nicholas DeOrio released 2 videos covering the Zaptie situation. These videos were designed to give Zaptie the defense that had been oh so lacking back in 2017, and to go after people like Deodor Anthony and I'm Alex, who at this point had become infamous for pushing false rape allegations against a YouTuber named Slazo. In late 2020, Nick would go on to get in touch with Zaptie and do an hour-long interview with him discussing his allegations and how he's been since leaving the internet. Here, Zaptie discusses what happened back in 2016 and shows a deal of remorse for his actions.
You thought she was 17, you find out that she's 16.
Correct.
And you continue the conversation. At this point, you were 19, and I believe at some point you turned 20.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Now, do you in hindsight think this was inappropriate, or
Oh, for sure.
Where are you today?
So, I didn't mean to cut you off, but yes, definitely yes. That was just straight up fucking creepy and not all right. I have no qualm saying that.
Yeah, see, I see it as a point to criticize you on.
For sure.
I don't know if it's entirely a get the fuck out of the community. Get out of here, dude. That's fucked up, bro. At least not by...
Notably, other creators such as AugieRFC and Turkey Tom also made content in support of Zaptie in the wake of Nick's videos. Finally, this leads us back into the debate. Technicals brings up the Zaptie situation, saying that Nick, Augie, and presumably Turkey Tom were being hypocrites for opposing welcoming ZeRo back, yet previously welcoming Zaptie back.
Technicals, why did you feel like you needed to make the video for ZeRo?
Well, I know memory is kind of hard, but kind of for the same reason that Augie and all his friends defended Zaptie, but actually my defense makes sense. Yeah, you memory hold that one, didn't you, pal? I got some timestamps.
Not really.
Yeah,
Do we want to
except I
remind
didn't
the chat
hand
what the most egregious allegation was? Just so that
having
we're clear on what we're
provocative
talking about?
images of a 16-year-old saved on his phone, but because
Having
they weren't
images
nude,
of a
it's not bad.
16-year-old?
Now, for reference, here is Zaptie and ZeRo compared. Zaptie was 20 talking to a 17-year-old who then confessed that she was 16. Zaptie stuck with her for a time after that, but then broke things off and stopped talking to the girl. After he was called out for things, he admitted his wrongdoing and apologized, showing a deal of remorse for his actions. On the other hand, ZeRo was 19 talking to a 14-year-old. He tried to say that he was disgusted when he found out Katie's age, when from the looks of the messages he sent her, he clearly was not. He confessed completely to the allegations against him, then later attempted to make it seem like he retracted that confession. He was caught in Technical's DMs speculating on how he could uncover Katie and was talking about her like a fucking anime villain. ZeRo shows no remorse. From everything we've seen so far, I would definitely feel more comfortable with Zaptie than ZeRo. While what each of them did was very bad, ZeRo has made it clear that he intends to bury his allegations and mislead the public about them at every turn. Zaptie has been upfront about what he has and hasn't done, and hasn't been trying to mislead, unlike ZeRo. Now, I want to make it clear that you don't have to like Zaptie. What he did back in 2016 was undoubtedly bad. He should have broken off the relationship with Heather as soon as she confessed to lying about her age, and a 2016 relationship is undoubtedly inappropriate and frankly creepy. However, you don't have to like Zaptie to see the differences between these two cases. Now, even though I disagree with Tech's assertions about Zaptie in this debate, I'm not gonna lie and say that Augie did a good job refuting them, because, well, he didn't. And not to say that's really all his fault either. Technicals hadn't mentioned Zaptie at all before this debate, and it had been around 2 years since Augie had initially covered the Zaptie story. I think I'd be a little hazy on the details of certain things too if I was in his position. But nevertheless, Augie getting tripped up when arguing about Zaptie is another reason why he hasn't looked upon too favorably in this debate. Keemstar's poll that he used to determine the winner of the debate showed around 40% voting for Augie and around 60% voting for Technicals. After everything was finished, Keem left a reply to this poll which read, "I disagree with the poll. I believe nobody actually won, and I think these two should make peace." Needless to say, this debate caused quite the commotion on Twitter, and I'd like to take this opportunity to go over some of it. First off, we have Elvis the Alien, who, if you'll remember, was good friends with Zaptie back in 2016. He tweeted, "Augie is a sad little man. He was insufferable to listen to during that debate." Augie responded to this by pointing out an instance in 2017 where Elvis had defended the artist Shadman's website staying up. Augie and Elvis later had a more calm discussion about this over Twitch chat, where Elvis agreed that he didn't like how Tech brought up Zaptie.
Zaptie was brought up completely out of nowhere and arguably, I would say arguably slandered by Technicals, because Tech was making the argument that Zaptie was just as bad as ZeRo, so that's pretty bad. In fairness to Elvis, he did say that he didn't like that, or he didn't like what Tech did there.
The next YouTuber I'd like to mention is Boogie2988, who tweeted, "Don't know about you, but watching the commentary community cannibalize itself has been one of my highlights of November 2021. It's been wild." He followed this up with a Twitter video, where he pretty much says that he thinks the community is blowing up because of Keemstar announcing his retirement.
And I think that infighting is because Keemstar retired. And I think the people that are out there fighting each other are trying to vie for the top, are trying to get to the top and be the #1 YouTuber who does drama and does commentary.
I think the perfect summation of this whole thing is the reply that Boogie left under his tweet, which reads, "I also guess I could be completely wrong about all this. Wouldn't be the first time." Next, we have Turkey Tom, who is a self-admitted Zaptie fan and had been previously critical of ZeRo. Tom tweeted out the debate saying that it was entertaining, but what we're here to look at is his reply under the tweet. He said, "Honestly, I think Technical's made a point I don't know how to respond to. I still don't like ZeRo, but the comparison is there." Overall, this situation has had its moments in terms of content, but at the same time, people who I get along really well with and consider friends are at each other's throats, and it feels weird. Willie Max Show then replied, defending Zaptie and pointing out differences between Zaptie and ZeRo. Tom then replied saying, "It's different, but as far as the emotional manipulation thing, I don't know. The point seems weird to me now," clarifying that he was talking about the videos made about Zaptie and ZeRo rather than the actual people themselves. After the debate, Tom would go on to stay pretty neutral on this subject, although he would go on to cover the aforementioned Boogie tweet on his second channel, Tom Dark. Another person I'd like to bring up is Ethan Ralph. Ethan Ralph is a controversial streamer known for his show The Kill Stream and being the one to record Chris Chen getting arrested. How he wormed his way into this situation is quite funny. After the debate, Ralph made multiple tweets in support of Technical, saying that Augie lost the debate. Later, as revealed by Augie, Ralph would start texting him in the middle of the night. As for the content of those messages, well, "You fucking disingenuous you know damn well why we fell out. It's cause you took up for that fat nasty bitch T-Clips when she stole my shit. You're the biggest on YouTube and I'm gonna be there for the fall, bitch. Tweet it out like my bitch. That's what you are. Send me some more money. Acting like you don't know about it to the people. You know good and well, fucking snake." After this, Ralph then responded by posting Augie's phone number publicly on Telegram. The last person who I'd like to specifically talk about is Oki's Weird Stories. Now, Augie is someone I had only known about previously because he got destroyed in a copyright debate by Nicholas DeOrio, but he's a YouTuber with around 550,000 subscribers who makes videos about, well, weird things. Augie might have had the most incendiary comments of all, writing in the Drama Alert debate chat, "Nick and Augie traded up friendship for content," which is of course something that has no basis in reality. When Asian Andy was surprised about the hostility in the community, commenting on how everyone was friends just a few weeks ago, Augie replied, "Vultures don't make friends." This all sort of culminated when Augie went onto the YouTuber Tipster's livestream. Augie claims that he's mad at the commentary community because they apparently have a repeated history of throwing their own under the bus, and don't ask me what he's referring to because he doesn't elaborate. Later in the stream, Tipster brings up the fact that Augie had spread misinformation about him, showing a tweet that Augie had made where he claims that Tipster had a Google Drive of the YouTuber Susie Lou's nudes. This, of course, was fake, and to Augie's credit, he did delete the tweet soon after he posted it. It's just kinda funny he even posted this in the first place. After this, Tipster brings up a tweet that Augie had made where he calls Tipster a lame bottom feeder. He then brings up how Augie had been praising him in his DMs. Here though, Tipster seems to get very upset very quickly and throws Augie off the stream in a fit of rage, which I'll admit comes off a tad strange.
Because
Like,
you're a
for 2 seconds
fucking
so I can
dishonest fucking hack, and quite frankly,
Okay.
I'm not interested in even continuing this conversation with you anymore, because you're over here talking shit like I regularly, throw shade at you or something, when I've never even fucking interacted with you, at least since this engagement that I'm showing on the screen here.
Are you done yet? Or can I?
Yeah,
Can I
we are done. Get the fuck
Okay.
out. Stupid bitch.
Moving away from the Twitter stuff, Augie and Tech both uploaded their own heavily cut clips from the debate, Augie's being about Tech's brother, and Tech's being about the high school context, the tweet that Augie liked, and Zaptie. Notably around this time, Technicals would go on to the Toy Bounty Hunters livestream, and it provides a look into Tech's views at the time. Here, Tech doubles down on the liking tweets point that he had made during the debate, saying that Augie never disavowed the tweet that he had liked.
And then I brought up the one where he liked the tweet about 1914 not being pedophilic. And then he's like, "Oh, I don't remember this. I like a lot of tweets. That doesn't mean anything." Like, okay. Yeah, because he didn't really clarify what he disagreed with the point. He just kind of said, "Oh, well, I don't know."
Well, how about a 5-year age gap? Let's go to my next one.
That's terrible.
What do you think about that tweet?
19-year-old and a 14-year-old? No, that's absolutely wrong and pedophilic.
He also claims that Nick used Zaptie's suicide attempt from after his allegations came out as an emotional appeal, which he doesn't elaborate on, so I'll shelf that for now. We can also see some of Tech's views from this time in a screenshot that Augie leaked from a group chat where Technicals says, "Check your ego, dog. You look like an actual pedo with all that weird shit you were saying. Meanwhile, you have to reach so far to tag me with shit I've cleared years ago, but yeah, I'm fucked." On December 1st, Augie would go live with After Hours episode 295, Cold Turkey, in which he would go over the aftermath of the debate. He would also go over a tweet that Jisoo had put out, announcing the fact that ZeRo was suing her and asking for donations towards her legal fund. Notably, she directly calls him a pedophile in the tweet, which I can't imagine being a smart move when you're involved in a lawsuit with the guy. Here, Augie stresses to the audience not to donate to Jisoo's legal fund, as she had previously lied about both ZeRo and Sky Williams.
Don't donate to this shit fund, alright? Just because ZeRo and Technicals might suck, doesn't mean that Jisoo is suddenly like, based, redemption, oh my god, queen, I'm gonna give her money to own Tech and ZeRo. No, she's just as terrible for her own reasons.
Now, I would be remiss if I didn't bring up this wonderful piece of art before I conclude this section. On December 5th, the YouTuber Porch released a song titled Technicals vs. AugieRFC, Epic Rap Battles of History. This song contained fire lyrics like,
"More subs, more hype, no way to flex, cause every time we argue I still have sex. Shut the tough guy act, Tech, your life is cushy. Have an ice cube, bro, you look like a pussy. I believe in you, Tech, but you choose this hill, because like Robert E. Lee, it's now a brother I killed."
This song was the first in 3 songs produced about this situation, and it's an absolute classic for anyone who followed the drama. Now, all that being said, what was the next move in this situation? Nick, Tech, and Augie had seemingly said all they had to say for better or for worse, and it didn't seem like anyone else really wanted to take the reins of such a heated situation. Well, that was until someone unexpected showed up. John Swan.
1, 2, 3.
But that was too soft.
John Swan was a commentary YouTuber that was in the same friend circle with Nick and Augie. He's someone who you might know for his clean editing and popular videos on Suzy Liu and Chris Hansen. Around the time of this situation with ZeRo first heating up, John was in a very awkward position. Let me give a basic rundown. Earlier in the year, the YouTuber Dream, who I think needs no introduction, accused John Swan of impersonating him to troll a small YouTuber named HarleyTBS. John's response was to deny being the one doing the trolling, claiming that a 12-year-old family friend of his had used his account to do the deed. Since John had such good credibility at the time, most chose to give him the benefit of the doubt, and they probably would have been justified in doing so. I mean, why would John lie about something so trivial? Well, as it would turn out, John was lying, as revealed when Nick publicly outed him after having a very telling call with him regarding the situation, in which John gives his classic line.
If you know the answer, then you know the answer.
So you did it!
That's what I'm gonna say.
John, come on! I'm not.
No, I'm not. I don't know. Who knows?
After this, John would make an apology on Twitter and deactivate his account. A few months later, John would return to YouTube, but gone were the hard-hitting videos that he was known for. Instead, he spent most of 2021 releasing very basic and somewhat bland content, such as his videos on Mixer, NFTs, and Isabella Janke. He would also release 2 very embarrassing videos around this time period, namely The Future of the Channel and Why I Might Be Quitting, and infamously, I Empathize with Dream. However, things were looking up for John around late 2021, as much of the community had mostly forgiven him by this point. People wanted to see a return to the content he had been so lauded for, and that's exactly what they got when on December 8th, 2021, John Swan uploaded ZeRo's Shame, the Technicals cover-up.
Oh, okay. Let's set the scene.
In this video, John goes over most of the criticisms that the community had towards Technicals in his video, for better or for worse, being the claims of emotional manipulation and excuses, the Team ZeRo interviews, and Tech not going as hard on ZeRo as he should have. I'm not going to go into great detail on most of these specific arguments, as by now you've probably already heard most of them multiple times in this video, as ultimately, John's video didn't really have much new information, as much as it had a recount of most of the criticisms against Tech and ZeRo put into a polished, hour-long video. There are some points of interest here, though. Notably, John includes a reading of the available Skype messages between ZeRo and Katie, juxtaposed with the twitlonger that Katie had posted to recount her story. This section was narrated by Twitter user Emma as Katie and YouTuber Dr. Skipper as ZeRo.
Dear ZeRo, my name is Katie. I used to be in the Smash community.
I was 14 years old during our conversations on Skype from September 2014 to January 2015. I was a young girl enraptured with the idea of being friends with someone I looked up to and admired. You used me in this state to flirt, manipulate, and ask for sexual favors from me.
Lamau, adorable.
Thanks. Wait, you, the legendary ZeRo, just called me adorable?
Yeah, you're an adorable cutie.
Thanks.
So adorable. Adorable cutie.
Oh, be quiet.
But you loving it. Can't lie to me. You are so adorable. OMG. Too much. Kate, you a perv though. It's okay. You growing up. It's gonna happen. You are still a baby. You're such a cutie. Mad adorable girl. Yeah, no one knows what we're doing.
Wait, what? I'm your adorable girl. That's really creepy, but also really cute. I mean, what?
You call it creepy, but you love it.
It's my opinion that this is the reason why this video struck a chord with so many people. Even going back and watching the video to write this script, hearing those DMs read in that way still gives me visceral feelings of disgust, and I imagine I'm not alone in that experience. The next part of the video leads us to probably my biggest criticism. You see, throughout this video, John brings up multiple criticisms of tech that can't necessarily be 100% proven. Criticisms like tech trying to emotionally blackmail the audience and tech using ZeRo's bad childhood as an excuse are both entirely possible but ultimately hinge on tech's intentions, and unless you can find a way to read his mind, we can't really know those intentions. If there's any bit of speculation that John has to do about tech's intentions, he automatically assumes that tech is being malicious, and while I can't entirely blame him for doing so, I think a little more caution from John would have gone a long way. This also extends to John covering the brother aspect of the situation, where John parrots Connor's narrative, saying,
If Tech had to come out and wholeheartedly condemn ZeRo, he would have had to condemn his brother as well.
Which you already know my stance on. Where it gets a little more interesting, however, is what John says directly after this.
And to a certain extent, he would even have to condemn himself.
Here, in the final section of John's video, he attempts to tie in Tech a little bit more with the group chat allegations, questioning why if Tech was the leader of the group chat, like he says in this video, why did he not put a stop to the minors talking sexually? As in Pixel Drink's video, he says,
they would also like make separate group chats amongst themselves, myself not included, where they would share nude photos of themselves with each other, which is really weird thinking about it. It was like a weirdly sexual environment with everyone in that chat.
Well, Tech would actually clear this up a little later on Twitter, saying that the minors actually did that in separate chats he was not in because they knew he wouldn't put up with it and that he disavowed their behavior the entire time. It's worth noting that at the time of John releasing his video, he wouldn't necessarily have had access to this information as Tech hadn't made this screenshot public yet, and Tech's previous response to the situation was pretty confusing when paired with his brother's video. However, this doesn't give John a pass to throw all benefit of the doubt away and say that Tech was literally in every group chat, as even without knowing the new information, it's still entirely possible that when Tech says,
I was in every group chat, because I was the leader,
he wasn't referring to the group chats where minors were sending nudes. The next day, on December 9th, Augie would stream RFC After Hours episode 297, Total Vindication, in which he goes over all of John's video, giving high praise and even describing it as Christmas coming early. Here, Augie refines his stance on ZeRo, as initially he had said that he didn't know if ZeRo was a pedophile or not during Nick's initial debate with Technicals.
Actually,
Yeah,
I hate Left more.
I don't
after this
know
video.
if ZeRo's a pedophile. I would have to do so much fucking... I'd probably have to know the guy to fully come to that conclusion. Even then, it'd be difficult, right?
Later, during the Thanksgiving Tension stream, he reiterates this position, then reconsiders and says that he would have to call ZeRo a pedophile based on his previously held positions, then retracts that, rejecting the label with a caveat, being that he still says it's a problem that he would have to call ZeRo a pedophile by his own previous standards.
Do you guys think that ZeRo's a pedophile?
I don't know.
So it's like it's the like ambiguity that kind of is the distrust part. Yeah,
I can't comfortably answer it, and that's my issue.
All right.
Honestly, actually, I might have to say yeah, because if my position on lolicon people is that they're sick people and probably pedophiles, then I think a guy who willingly sexted I might actually, honestly, yeah. I don't want to because I hate prescribing. You know what? Fuck the label. Actually, I don't know if the label matters. This label shit is a dangerous game to play. It always is. Yeah. All right. I don't know what I call this guy. I'm comfortable calling Shadbase a pedophile. He drew fucking lolly porn of fucking real people or something. I call that guy a pedophile all the time. I guess by extension, I kind of have to call this guy a pedophile then, by my own standards. I just, and that's a problem.
Augie takes some time in this stream while reviewing John's video to further clarify his position.
Look, ultimately, whether or not he fits your arbitrary label doesn't matter. It literally just matters what he did. People getting hung up on this question is fucking cancer.
Speaking of responses to John's video, on Christmas Eve 2021, a small Smash Bros-centric commentator named The Franchise released his own response to John, titled, John Swan, How to Be Dishonest. Just to get it out of the way, The Franchise does not support ZeRo, at least not in the same way that Technicals does. His video was just meant to discuss what he perceived as flaws in John's video. Let's get into this. First off, Franchise argues against John's assertion that Technicals was using ZeRo's suicide story as emotional manipulation. Okay, fair enough. Next here is something that I do have to disagree with. Franchise argues that since ZeRo even brought up the Laura situation in his confession before he was accused, that it must have all just been a sabotage attempt.
This is corroborated by the fact that ZeRo also admitted guilt to another situation where he was innocent. Keep in mind that the Laura situation was not in contention until ZeRo brought it up in his confession. He wasn't responding to an allegation when he wrote that bit, so why would he bring it up if he wasn't trying to sabotage himself as he claims?
Now, I could understand this argument a little more if ZeRo actually admitted wrongdoing in this situation, but well, he didn't. He clearly states that he was under the assumption that Laura was not underage at the time, and when he states that he apologized and felt terrible about it, this is in relation to her telling him that she was underage later, not saying he knew the whole time. For full clarification, I'm not doubting this confession was a suicide note. If I had done the things that ZeRo admits to here, I probably wouldn't be feeling too good either. I just don't see this as a sabotage attempt. What I see as much more likely is ZeRo wanting to confess the truth of what he had and hadn't done in his suicide letter. Franchise's next point is to say that ZeRo has a history of admitting to false allegations, thereby giving credibility to the idea that ZeRo lied in his confession.
Why am I supposed to take ZeRo's confession at face value when there's reason to discard it? And he also has a history of admitting to and apologizing for things that he didn't do.
The source of this claim is 2 paragraphs from ZeRo's Google Doc response that deal with ZeRo's responses to allegations made by Jisoo and Leffen. Now, the part dealing with Jisoo can be discarded, as he doesn't really admit to anything per se. He just apologizes for hurting her feelings and being a quote-unquote stupid, irresponsible teenager. Moving on to the part dealing with Leffen, this is the part of his response where he addresses Leffen's allegations of showing hentai to Japanese players at a Smash tournament. Here, while Leffen accuses ZeRo of showing very explicit images, ZeRo tells a very different story. While he does claim to remember the incident and says it was a cringy moment for him, he says that he doesn't know what Leffen's talking about when it comes to calling the images very explicit. He only apologizes here for potentially making people uncomfortable, and he disputes Leffen's claim, meaning that no, ZeRo does not have a confirmed prior history of admitting to things he didn't do. Now, to summarize the rest of the video, the franchise discusses the excuses narrative, thinking that it's dishonest. He also discusses the brother narrative, his rationale being that he thinks bringing up Tech's brother would have been fair game if there was a legitimate point to make, with his opinion that there wasn't, which I tend to find myself agreeing with. It's notable that in this section, he doesn't mention that the new evidence that Tech provided on Twitter was, well, new, and he frames it like it had been available the whole time, which was somewhat misleading. Finally, the franchise shows a clip from John's video where he questions Technical's credibility in the future. Franchise responds to this by taking shots at John's credibility, bringing up his situation with Dream and another situation with a small commentator named Pieman. Now, ultimately, I don't think it's necessarily wrong for John to question Technical's future credibility, but do I think it's ironic? 100%.
But I don't think I can take any future Technicals video at face value anymore. And I invite you to ask yourself the same thing.
Also, it isn't lost on me that the background gameplay for this video features the Among Us Ice Climbers. Among Us Ice Climbers. At this point, you might be wondering why I'm even talking about this video. When the franchise uploaded it, he only had around 5,000 subscribers, and he wasn't even directly related to the situation at all. Well, in a surprise that I would have never seen coming, on January 3rd, 2022, John Swan uploaded a nearly 30-minute-long, fully edited response to the franchise's video titled, "The Worst Exposed Video Ever, Responding to a Technicals Fanboy." Now, summarizing this video as simply as possible, John disagrees with about everything the franchise said in his video, for better or for worse. And for risk of being redundant, I'm not going to go into detail because at this point in the video, you've already heard all this shit, and you're probably going to hear some of it again too. After this video released, the franchise would do a live stream reaction to the video, mostly agreeing to disagree with John, making this a response stream to a response video to a response video to a response video. Now, when looking at this situation as a whole, it has a lot of what I'd like to call side quests. The Augie side quest, the Boogie side quest, the Zaptie side quest, and the one I was just discussing, being the John Swan side quest, are all examples of this. Around this time, though, one of the bigger side quests, being the Brother side quest, was heating up to a boiling point, and now we're gonna find out why. On January 10th, a small YouTuber named Advil, who had around 850 subscribers at the time, uploaded a video all about Technical's brother titled Pixel Drink, the Unforgivable. Throughout this video, Advil goes over the allegations made against Pixel pertaining to the group chats, as well as another set of allegations that I've yet to mention in this video. You see, on July 7th, 2020, Pixel's ex-girlfriend, Sarah, made a twitlonger accusing Pixel of various things, the main allegation that she levies being her saying that he raped her in 2019. She also accuses him of sending Lolly in a Discord server, dating a 16-year-old when he was 20 or 21, and in this post she spreads a rumor that Pixel had sex with a 15 or 16-year-old girl, saying that one of his old friends told her. Now, the only little problem with all this is that she provides zero concrete evidence to show that any of these things actually happened. She only shows 2 heavily cropped screenshots from their conversations, the contents of them being so incredibly vague that I wouldn't be comfortable saying that they're conclusive of anything. Pixel would actually respond in a Google document later that day. First off, he completely denies the allegation of rape, saying that everything was consensual. He also denies having sex with a 15 or 16-year-old girl, calling it a complete lie. When discussing the allegation of dating a 16-year-old, he admits that he dated a not 16 but 17-year-old girl, however only when he was 20, not 21. He also cites Nevada's age of consent being 16 in his defense. Lastly, when it comes to the allegation of sending Lolly in a Discord server, Pixel admits to it. However, like in the group chat allegations, he states that he had sent it for shock value to gross out his friends, and not to be sexually gratifying. Now, getting back to the video in question, Advil actually gets a hold of Sarah and interviews her, where she tells the story she told in her twitlonger again and makes a bunch of allegations with zero evidence. Despite that, however, there are some things that I like about this video. I like a lot of the first 13 minutes of the video where Advil goes over the group chat allegations, pointing out contradictions in Technical's and Pixel's responses. I like how, when dealing with the rape allegations, Advil commends Tech and Pixel for some of their handling of the situation, praising Tech for telling people to look at both sides and praising Pixel for his handling of the rumors that Sarah perpetuated. I like how he mentions that Sarah spreading rumors muddies the credibility of all her other allegations. I like how Advil brings to light that Pixel had drawn the Earthbound character Ness doing sexual acts, who is a 13 to 14-year-old. And I think the video is overall pretty funny in some places. However, that's where my praises pretty much end, as this video is very flawed, as I'll show you right here. First off, Advil states that
but someone who is a million times worse than ZeRo is Pixel Drink,
which is something I'd heavily disagree with. Advil criticizes Tech and Pixel for not having evidence in their responses, despite the burden of proof not being on them. Advil includes rumors about Pixel despite being critical of Tech including rumors in one of his videos. Advil again criticizes Tech and Pixel for not presenting evidence to disprove rumors about Pixel despite them being literal rumors with no evidence. Advil alludes to several screenshots, 2 of them being the ones I discussed earlier, being the cropped DMs of Pixel and Sarah's conversation, and one that had not been seen before, which consists of a Discord screenshot of Sarah talking to one of her friends on the night she claimed to have been raped by Pixel. Even if this screenshot is real, it's still not definitive proof of anything, and Advil doesn't even show it in the video, as well as only showing the other 2 screenshots for less than a second in the intro. Advil equates Pixel seemingly being addicted to hentai to him being into Lolly. And last but not least,
many of the awful allegations that are proven against Pixel start now, and it starts with 16-year-olds.
With a picture of convicted sexual predator Austin Jones in the background, no less. I think you can tell that I don't really like this video. This video has flaws, major flaws, and I'm not going to sugarcoat that. But in talking to Advil while making this video, he seems to agree with my criticisms, saying, I think there's a lot of flaws with that video, like holy shit a lot. I wish the Me Now had done it, because I've learned a lot and I think I could make it actually good, to be honest. But I did learn from it, and I think my videos have been better. Am I going to say that you have to like Advil? No. But do I think he's learned from his mistakes since then? Yeah, I do. The next day, commentary streamer Doc on the Radio booted up episode 9 of his live show, The Doccast, to go over the Advil video and discuss his criticisms of it. Around 40 minutes into the stream, Advil calls in to discuss the video with Doc, a YouTuber named Lanza, and a small member of the commentary community named DJ Screwdriver. The day after that, presumably in response to Advil's video, Pixel himself would upload a video called Taking Accountability, where he again goes over the allegations levied at him, similar to the video he made 2 years prior. He also goes over some of the new stuff Sarah says in the interview, disputing all of it, and he clarifies things such as claiming the Ness drawings were comedic in nature. Well, this response piqued the curiosity of AugieRFC, as in his video titled This Is Why I Can't Forgive Technicals, he says that it's finally time to look into the Pixel Drink allegations.
Tomorrow morning, we're going into the Pixel Drink stuff. I've avoided it for too long. We need to go in and figure out what the deal is here.
Moving on, the next day, Augie would follow up on his previous video by watching Advil's video on his livestream and giving his thoughts on it, as well as Pixel's response. And for the most part, that concludes the brother side quest, which proved to be one of the most cancerous parts of this entire situation. Good riddance. Now, steering back closer towards the main topic of this video, ever since the beginning of this drama going so hot, it was generally known that Technicals would be making a video about the situation in an attempt to expose the commentators criticizing him as hypocrites. This brings us back to someone we haven't heard from in quite a long time now, Nicholas DeOrio. Now, Nick had continued to be very critical of tech on Twitter throughout all this time, but throughout all of it, he had never made a single piece of YouTube content about it. That was until, on January 16th, 2022, when Nick uploaded to his second channel, How Will Technicals Expose Me?, featuring Edwin's Generation. This video consisted of stream clips from Twitch where Nick and Edwin's Generation speculate on and try to predict Technicals' video. In this video, Nick's prediction for Tech's video was pretty much that Technicals would go through every situation that Nick had covered in the past and try and find inconsistencies while ignoring the greater nuance of all the situations.
Alright, so I predict that his video is going to probably be oriented around me and Augie and everything we've ever said ever. And he's probably going to bring up some stuff from like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and he's going to take me through like every single take I've ever had about entirely extremely complex niche drama scenarios and try to minimize them to like the most basic form of the possible thing.
He made it clear that he'd probably have to concede at least a couple points and that he'd be happy to do so, but he didn't really think it would change his overall argument.
Again, like I guarantee I'll probably have to like own one or two things. I guarantee he'll make like one or two good points throughout that length of the whole video.
Right.
But he's gonna probably try to push, be like, well, if you disavow ZeRo, you have to disavow Zaptie, and that doesn't make any sense.
Would these predictions come true, or would Nick be way off? Would Technicals be vindicated, or would he fall short? That is something that we would find out 12 days later, when on January 28th, 2022, Technicals would release his grand response to the drama, titled, The Commentary Double Standard. By this point, the discussion had moved far away from its origin, and this video is a good showcase of that, as ZeRo himself and points directly relating to ZeRo are only mentioned a handful of times. No, this video is directed squarely at the commentators that had been criticizing Technicals for 2 months now, with Technicals believing that they all suffer from a double standard in their content. Let's get right into this, starting with...
Bruh, is this shit normal? He's bugging, he must not know that I'm thugging.
Now, this part of the video is aimed at trying to expose what Technicals sees as a double standard in the commentary community, being Technicals' opinion that commentators treat Zaptie better than they treat other figures accused of similar things. The people Tech attempts to tie into this are Turkey Tom, Nicholas DeOrio, AugieRFC, TommyC, and Tipster. Now, looking at this section as a whole, like Tech's video on ZeRo, there's a lot of fluff. He brings up a bunch of things that Nick, Tom, and Augie might have gotten wrong in their Zaptie coverage, mostly regarding legality. Now, I'm not going to speak to the legality of the situation because, quite frankly, I'm not going to play lawyer here and tell you that I know more about the law than I do. I would also say that moral arguments are much more preferable to legal arguments. However, Tom, Nick, and Augie all made legal arguments for Zaptie in their videos.
16 to 20, that's a little odd. I don't know if I feel comfortable with that, but hey, it's fucking legal, alright? So, whatever. I don't really give that much of a shit. If it's legal, whatever.
They all had said in their videos that what Zaptie did would have been legal due to the age of consent in Washington state where the girl lived being 16, which Technicals tries to dispute by bringing up other laws, arguing that it may have not been legal after all. Now again, I'm not going to speak to the validity of the legal arguments made here because I'm not a fucking lawyer. However, none of these people are either. When making definitive legal arguments in a context as serious as this, you're setting yourself up for things like this to happen, and I don't really have much sympathy for the commentators in this point. However, at the end of the day, legality shouldn't change your moral view of the situation, and it ultimately doesn't say much as to Tech's main thesis, and is more just a side criticism of the commentators. Moving on to the main point of the video, Technicals criticizes Nick, Augie, Tipster, and TommyC for what he sees as special treatment given to Zaptie as opposed to their coverage of the YouTubers Kiwis and Minilad. Firstly, for Nicholas DeOrio, Technicals brings up 2 examples. The first one is a clip of Nick saying that the 19-year-old Kiwis sending a picture of his dick to a 16-year-old was bad because it's illegal, juxtaposed with a clip of Nick talking about the legality of the Zaptie situation in a more favorable light. Now, even ignoring how a huge part of Nick's video on Kiwis was about Kiwi's constant victim blaming, blaming his depression, obfuscating the truth, and constantly trying to justify his relationship with the girl, Nick already clarified his opinion of the age gap in the Zaptie situation 1 year before this video in his Zaptie interview, where he calls it a point to criticize him on.
You thought she was 17, you find out that she's 16.
Correct.
And you continue the conversation. At this point, you were 19, and I believe at some point you turned 20.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yeah, that was just straight up fucking creepy and not alright. I have no qualm saying that.
Yeah, see, I see it as a point to criticize you on.
For sure.
I don't know if it's entirely a, get the fuck out of the community. Get out of here, dude. That's fucked up, bro. At least not by today's standards.
While I think Nick should have been more clear about this in his original Zaptie videos, I don't think that this is enough evidence to show a real double standard. Moving on, Technical's second example for Nick was showcasing Nick's reaction to Minilad, who was 21 when he sexted with two 17-year-old girls, one of whom he had known since she was 13, with the age gap being 4 years, just like in the Zaptie case. Tech shows a clip of Nick talking negatively about Minilad, as well as a tweet Nick made commenting on the situation saying, "Yikes." However, I think it would be disingenuous not to bring up Nick's reply to that tweet, which Technicals did not show, in which he said, "It's not even the gap that makes me cringe to the point it hurts, it's the fact that they met when she was fucking 13, which seemingly responds to Tech's point more than a full year before he even made it. Moving on to the next person in line, we have AugieRFC. Now with Nick, he had seemingly avoided using the term pedophile in these types of situations. However, Augie used it much more liberally, calling Minilad and Kiwis pedos. Augie had once called ZeRo a pedophile, however he later clarified that ultimately the label doesn't really matter and what matters is what he did. While I don't know about calling these people pedophiles, as like I talked about towards the beginning of this video, these situations are kind of gray areas, I do understand why Augie went much harder on these people than he did, say, Zaptie, for example. In his video, Tech discusses the age gaps in the situations with Minilad and Kiwis, but neglects to bring up the rest of the context on why both of these people suck. First off, Minilad is a repeat offender, which is something that Technicals even brings up in his ZeRo video, which is something that Nick, Augie, and Boblax did question him on, however, they never denied that it's important. Augie, like Nick, also stresses the point of Minilad knowing his victim since she was 13. Also, in Minilad's apology video, he blames him messaging a 17-year-old on him being suicidal, even including a screenshot of him saying, "I knew she was 17, but I was suicidal, and said to myself, if I'm going to kill myself, I thought I'd go down swinging." That brings us nicely into Kiwis, who also pulled the mental health card, blaming him messaging a 14-year-old as a 17-year-old, and that same girl later when she was 16 and he a 19-year-old on his depression. Kiwis also constantly played the victim, saying shit like,
"I shouldn't have trusted this girl. I shouldn't have. I don't know why I did what I did. She convinced me that I could trust her, and it was a mistake. And that's something I will never make ever again."
It's notable that Kiwis claims to have been catfished, as it turns out the real age of the girl was actually 2 years younger. While the girl Kiwis sexted claims that she never lied about her age, Kiwis claims that she did, and although Kiwis might be full of shit, we'll still give him the benefit of the doubt here. When Augie covered both of these stories, he heavily stressed their responses when looking at what he thinks of them. We can even see in Augie's coverage of Kiwis, along with sending dick pics to a minor, Augie cites Kiwis' response when discussing why he calls Kiwis a pedo.
Now, a lot of people are hesitant to call this guy a pedophile. Me personally, I don't really have much of an issue with it. I don't know what else you would call him. I mean, if you've watched the interviews on Drama Alert, on Scarce back in 2016, if you watched his own response video, this guy's a lunatic. Not only does he admit to sending pictures to a minor, but he also goes to victim blame the girl. Like, oh, she was just, well, what can I say? She was a tantalizing treat. I just couldn't hold back. I couldn't resist myself.
Even later in this same video, Augie says that if Kiwis had shown remorse for his actions, he might consider letting him back to make content.
It'd be one thing if he, said something like, "Look, guys, what I did in the past was crazy," or whatever. "I just want a chance to make a living," or whatever. Maybe, if we're gonna be incredibly charitable, we can allow him to make content or whatever. It can be like, okay, whatever. Maybe not content for kids, mind you, but this guy just has no remorse for what he's done. And we're gonna read his statement that he's now deleted that just shows how he tries to rewrite history.
Does this sound familiar to anyone? Even if you disagree with the criteria Augie used to label someone as a pedo, it doesn't really matter. When looking at Augie's rationale, it doesn't really suggest a double standard, as Zaptie's response to his situation was clean of all the weird shit plaguing Minilad and Kiwis. Moving on now to another person Tech brought up in his video, we have TommyC. Now, Tommy isn't someone I've really discussed much in this situation because he mostly stayed out of the drama, but looking to Tommy's coverage of the ZeRo situation, he actually had a pretty level-headed take.
I'm going to say a lot of things that are going to make people uncomfortable on both sides. There is a difference between tolerance and acceptance. And I don't accept this whatsoever. I tolerate it. I tolerate it because I know young people make mistakes, and I don't like the idea that there's no path and road to redemption when it goes through. My position on high school kids on the ages between 18, 19, and 20 has always been pretty similar. While I tolerate it, I think it is a terribly bad red flag, but I don't believe that is indicative of somebody being a P word. This is the biggest problem I have with ZeRo, and I don't think he's sorry. Well, I know he's not sorry. Like, I know it. This whole thing is a bunch of trash. You're not sorry. That's it. It's over. The comparisons to Zaptie, what I say, are fair. They are not the same thing. They are apples and fucking motorcycles.
Now, hearing this, you'd think that Tech wouldn't go super aggro at Tommy or even bring him up at all, because he was pretty charitable to ZeRo. Well, Tech did it anyway. Since Tommy supports Zaptie, Tech tried to tie him into the whole commentary double standard thing, and it's kind of embarrassing. Here, Tech brings out a clip from Tommy's stream covering Minilad.
As a bonus, here's Tommy laughing at calling Minilad a pedophile.
Now, you might expect that this clip will contain Tommy calling Minilad a pedo. Well, guess what? Tommy never actually called Minilad a pedo. The clip that Tech shows is Tommy asking if Minilad's a pedo, someone on his stream says yes, and then Tommy makes a joke about it.
This guy's definitely like, can you call him a pedo? This Minilad character?
I mean, he admitted to like sending nudes to a minor. I don't quite recall.
No, really?
Yeah, I'm comfortable calling him that.
Yeah. Well, he's got red hair. Nobody believed it wasn't him. Fucking ginger.
Fucking ginger.
Trying to rope someone like Tommy into this whole thing when he had the most mellow take out of everyone honestly just makes Tech look desperate. Tech also makes a bunch of jokes calling Tommy a pathetic old man. He does something similar with Nick, saying that he thinks Nick's content is boring. That's all well and good until you remember that Tech worked with these people. Tech, if you thought that Tommy was such a pathetic old man, why'd you do 2 shows with him? If you thought that Nick's content was so boring, why'd you bring him onto one of your biggest videos, especially if you thought that it made your video worse like you said? It just doesn't add up. Lastly, for this part of the video, Technicals brings up an instance of something that happened specifically with Augie and Tipster. Pretty much, a group of Technicals fans came together and fabricated a fake screenshot of Tech asking people to infiltrate Augie's community and become mods in order to gather information for Technicals' video. One of them then tweeted the fake screenshot to Augie and donated to his stream asking for him to pull it up. Augie then fell for it, and so did Tipster. Not a good look for the two of them. While Tipster was a little bit more skeptical, Augie was less so, tweeting, "Academics, please respond."
Dude, Tech is literally promoting gay. I'm fucking dying,
Yeah,
dude.
it is gay ops. Like, Tech, please don't do that. Gay ops never work out for anybody.
Dude, what was that thing Kraut said? What was that thing he said
Payton?
about his Discord scientist or something?
Oh, academics, please respond.
Academics. Please respond. I'm gonna own him.
No.
This was definitely bad on both of them, and Augie should have been a lot more skeptical here, but ultimately, it's not really that big of a deal. It wasn't a super serious point in Tech's video, and it leads into a pretty funny skit about Tipster, which I promise will be relevant later. With all that said, let's move on to... The last third of Tech's video is entirely focused on John Swan. Remember that at this point, we aren't really talking about the double standard thing anymore, as John wasn't really involved with the Zaptie stuff. This is just Tech's response to John's video. While I think this part is somewhat nitpicky, Tech does have some understandable grievances with John. Tech disputes John's claims that his interview with ZeRo's only use could be for emotional manipulation. This is a somewhat hyperbolic statement from John, and while I think Tech should have moved that interview, or at least just use a clip from EE's interview, speculating on whether Tech was being malicious or not with that is just, well, speculation. We don't know, and we probably never will. Tech also clarifies his involvement in the brother situation, reiterating what he had previously posted on Twitter, saying that he was not in those side chats that the minors were sending nudes in, and while the situation is somewhat convoluted, I'll give Tech the benefit of the doubt here. And finally, Tech criticizes John for having a black and white view of these kinds of cases, using something that he had said about Nairo in relation to ZeRo as an example.
One is an undeniable crime of sex acts with a minor that has unwavering support from the community, and the other can't even be prosecuted because the alleged conversations don't actually exist. While it's true that both are bad, the cases are wildly different. So expecting the exact same stance on 2 cases that range in severity is just intellectually dishonest.
While I do think this clip is pretty ironic given the earlier part of Tech's video, as many others have pointed out, I do still want to give him credit here. There's a kind of dumb argument that Tech makes here regarding dictionaries. He criticizes John for using the Lexico definition of the word pedophilia, saying that John was cherry-picking. However, when looking into Lexico, you'll see that it's actually using the definitions from the Oxford Dictionary, which is on a comparable level of popularity to the Merriam-Webster Dictionary that Tech recommends. Tech also attempts to say that John is a hypocrite for what he saw as John advocating for ZeRo's deplatforming, which we'll come back to later. Lastly, I want to talk about the other situations that Tech brings up to try and discredit John. These, of course, being the Dream situation and a lesser-known situation involving the small commentator, Pieman. The basic rundown of this situation is that Pieman, as a 15-year-old kid, sexted a 12-year-old. John then hyperbolically called out Pieman for this, seeming to insinuate that he was some kind of predator. After this, Pieman declared to Twitter that he was going to commit suicide, and after he didn't go through with it, John accused him of suicide baiting.
So he tried to weaponize his suicide attempt to try and make us feel bad about him saying he was being attracted to a 12-year-old.
This situation is detailed in a video by Willie Magshow, and if you'd like to hear about this more in depth, I'd recommend that video. Don't get me wrong, John sucks for both of these situations. With the Pieman one, I could understand the comparison saying that John thought both Pieman and ZeRo were suicide baiting because he's uncharitable. Even though it's not a super big point in Technical's favor, the comparison is there. However, that doesn't account for the Dream situation being brought up. Yes, John was shitty to his friends, and yes, John was shitty to Pieman, but can you remind me how John lying to his friends relates to ZeRo? Like, at all? Overall, this video was ultimately kind of bad. While I think that Tech brought up some decent points against John Swan, he kind of fails to prove his whole commentary double standard argument, which is what most of his video was centered around. All that being said, Tech is usually a pretty funny guy, and the jokes in this video were probably the best part, and I don't think that's a controversial opinion. Wait a second. Jokes.
I love my wife, okay? I would never cheat on my wife.
The first person mentioned in Tech's video to respond was Tipster. Now, you'll notice that I didn't really discuss Tipster much when looking at Tech's video, because out of all the people name-dropped, he honestly had the least relevance to the situation, and Tech's criticism of him was very similar to his criticism of Nick and Augie. Tipster's response to Tech's actual points was pretty mellow and Tipster-like, if I do say so myself. If you want to watch his actual response, he deleted it sometime between then and now, so I'll have a link to an archive of it somewhere around here. But no, the real consequential part of Tech's video for Tipster was the jokes. You see, Tipster is well known in the commentary community for hanging around a lot of e-girls and flirting with them. Some might even call it an e-girl harem. Jokes about this topic were not new, and many people partook in them, such as Nicholas DeOrio and AugieRFC. Technicals included 2 skit segments on Tipster in his video, both poking fun at him for the e-girls and other things. The first one joking about Tipster's wife not liking him flirting with women online, and the second one including a picture of the e-girl Hannah Animal, who was at the time seen as Tipster's head e-girl. Tipster was not pleased with these jokes.
He bitched about me blocking him earlier today, and the comment about my wife, and also dragging a friend into this that has nothing to do with this, are what earned him the block.
This is where a smaller YouTuber named Lyrix came in, when on February 4th, he uploaded the video, Tipster is a pathetic loser. In this video, Lyrix details the fact that literally fucking everyone already makes these jokes about Tipster, including Tipster's friends, yet Tipster only gets mad at Tech for these jokes.
Fuck you! So I'm assuming the people who actually started these rumors and these jokes about your wife, Augie, Nicholas DeOrio, and Bo Blacks, I'm assuming these are the same people that should get blocked as well, and that you really don't fuck with, Tipster?
Tipster's announcing his divorce live? He just announced his fucking divorce.
Dude,
on a stream to 618 people. Yo, Chad, I'm gonna link Tipster. Can you give him some good words on his divorce? Tell him that we support him still. Give him a Nick DeOrio raid. Tell him that, like, we still love him.
Lyrix also makes fun of Tipster being mad at Tech for spreading the impression that Tipster cheats on his wife, showing Tipster's Twitter already spreading that impression itself. After making his initial response to Tech on his stream, Tipster then later published a twitlonger about his response, pretty much just saying that what he said on stream was his genuine reactions to the jokes, and to agree to disagree. Overall, the whole thing with Tipster was pretty funny, completely unrelated to any kind of points Technicals was making, but rather just because of the way that Tipster handles himself online.
I wish you AIDS! AIDS for everyone! AIDS! Everybody get AIDS! Please get AIDS!
TommyC pretty much had the opposite reaction as Tipster. He was level-headed and did a pretty good job explaining why he wasn't a part of any double standard, as I discussed earlier.
What happened was, he treats the commentary community as, like, everybody handled it the same way, including me, which is really unfair, because I went out of my way to say, no, I don't think he's a pedophile. I think people made mistakes. I talk about a road to redemption, and I even give the difference between Zaptie. He was remorseless. ZeRo. Zaptie was. And I think that's fair. But you'll see, as the way Technical frames it, is I'm just running around calling people pedos.
When you look at the things Tommy said here, they tend to make sense, and when you look at the responses Technicals gave later, they're very weak. At first, Technicals conceded that Tommy never called ZeRo a pedo, because, well, he really has to. But he follows this up, interjecting that Tommy has a history of being afraid of defending a pedophile.
It's fair for him to point that out because he didn't actually call him a pedophile,
Yeah.
as far as I'm aware. But Tommy also has a history of being very afraid of being accused of defending a pedophile. Like with the Zaptie shit, the second he started being called a pedo defender, he basically dropped the whole thing.
Again, Tech, what the fuck does this have to do with ZeRo? Tech also tries to say that because Tommy didn't explicitly say that Mini Lad isn't a pedophile, then he must have just meant he's a pedophile all along.
He's wrong on his points about me just clipping him out of context to shit, because in that stream with Mini Lad where they ask if he's a pedophile, there's nowhere in the stream where it clears up that he's not a pedophile or he doesn't think he's a pedophile. So he is lumped in with that kind of mentality. But
I don't know why Tech couldn't just concede to Tommy, considering his reasons justifying Tommy's mentions in the video were just grasping at straws, but hey, your guess is as good as mine.
Hello, Augie. It's me, John Swan. I love Israel.
John Swan responded to the video in a live stream titled I Was Technical's Editor, a reference to a previous video about Creepshow art. This is an hour and 13-minute long stream where John watches the part of Tech's video concerning him and tries to refute a lot of the points, as well as looking like he wants to kill himself while watching Tech's skit segments. In this stream, like in his response to the franchise, John disagrees with about all of Technical's points, again, for better or for worse. I'm not going to go into detail here, as this is stuff we've already discussed by this point, but there is one thing I'd like to follow up on from earlier. When trying to dispel the argument Tech makes about John being a hypocrite due to his stance on deplatforming, John actually denies ever making the argument that ZeRo should be terminated, saying that he was only talking about the community's response in his video on Technicals.
Like, I've never once made the statement or the assertion that, or the argument, what did I say statement? The argument that ZeRo should be terminated from YouTube. I've never said that. Everything in my video is talking about the community's response. It's talking about like, oh, like why should the community be welcoming back? The community should shun him. He shouldn't be welcomed back. Like, this is talking about the community response.
Now, I'd like to front-load this by saying it's entirely possible that Tech is right here. While John never outright says that ZeRo should be deplatformed, he does say things that could lead you to believe that he thinks that, and as we know from past controversies, John is not above lying. However, I would have thought that Technicals might be more open to giving people the benefit of the doubt on speculation on ambiguous wording like this based off of previous controversy, but hey, to each their own. Technicals responded to John's stream in the form of stream sniping it, streaming himself watching John's stream as it was live in a stream titled I Was John Swan's Employer, as John had previously done some work for Technicals. This stream was...
Get it. Remember, the police are really, really bad at, like, with online crimes and stuff. And the Onision case is a perfect example. They investigated everything and they found no evidence of any criminal activity.
Yeah, moving on.
And Augie is gay, and Augie likes men, and Augie sucks dick, and Augie is gay, and Augie is gay, and Augie likes men.
Augie had the most substantial response out of everyone, responding in an hour and 46-minute long stream titled Steak and Mashed Potatoes, which was later clipped into the video, my response to Technicals. In this stream, Augie goes over the cases of Kiwis, Mini Lad, ZeRo, and Zaptie, and outlines why he comes to different conclusions when looking at those 4 cases. Again, like with John, this is stuff we've already talked about, so I'm not going to be going in depth. Before moving forward, I want to mention 2 main issues I have with this response. The first one being that, in this stream, Augie got the age of the Kiwis victim wrong, and 2, Augie said Technicals defended Mini Lad and Kiwis. I don't think that's a fair takeaway from Tech's video, and I do think Augie missed the point of what Technicals was saying here. In this stream, Augie also discusses a little Twitter spat that Tech had with him, where Tech needlessly moralized about a joke clip that Augie had posted of the huge streamer Ludwig, where Ludwig says that Technicals defends rapists with a wide Putin meme at the end. Augie compares the meme he posted to the skits in Technicals' video, where Tech depicts Zaptie trying to find students at a high school, questioning why Tech was moralizing over his tweet, but fine including a bunch of jokes about Zaptie.
Let's give my real opinion on these skits. I think they're funny as fuck. Honestly. I thought the skits were the best part of the video. But if we want to moralize and get pissy over jokes, I can do the same thing too, alright? I can flip off my comedy switch and say that, oh, this is really wrong. You are saying mean things about Zaptie that weren't true or something like that. Just like how we can do the same thing with my fucking Ludwig clip. 2 can play the same game, alright? I just want to laugh, damn it. That's all I want to do on the internet.
Finally, moving on to the last person, Nick never really gave a substantial response. Nick pretty much said that Tech's video was extremely underwhelming and that his previous predictions were pretty spot on. From the limited amount of tweets Nick made about it, he pretty much said that the video wasn't even worth responding to, and that he doesn't care about the drama anymore due to how cancerous it had become. And, no matter what your actual opinions are on the points being made on either side, this drama had certainly become very cancerous. After all the commentators' responses, it was unclear where the situation was headed, if anywhere at all. One might imagine that after this, the drama would slowly die down over time until both sides stopped talking about it. However, Technicals had other ideas. Ever since Tech released his new video, he had wanted one thing, and that thing was another debate with Augie. Augie did not want this debate, his reasoning being that since he views Tech as dishonest and bad faith, another debate between them would be absolutely pointless and unproductive, citing their previous debate as an example. Seeing Augie's refusal to debate again, Tech accused Augie of running from him. Honestly here, I can see where both sides are coming from. From Tech's side, it makes sense why he thinks Augie was being a pussy, and from Augie's side, it makes sense why he didn't want to debate Tech a second time. However, Tech did not take no for an answer, and to show how much of a debate bro he was, and to really stick it to Augie, Tech debated a bunch of random audience members in Boblax's Discord server for 2.5 hours. Since Augie wouldn't talk to him, Tech debated a bunch of well-known multi-million subscriber YouTubers, such as Doc on the Radio. I'm curious, I remember you said on there that you thought it was private. So where'd you hear that from?
I lied.
Bunk?
You could say that you are epistemically neutral as to whether that person is there or not. Like Schrodinger's cat bullshit, right?
You can say that you're epistemically neutral. This guy also 100% smells like shit.
Advil.
Then, everything changed when the pedophiles attacked.
Mike the Bike.
If you're so sure you're
I'm Mike
one,
the Bike.
why are
I
you
gave
in this
Augie like
server right now?
$200 this week because I love his cock.
And Smaggle Daggle.
You wanna know what the leak is?
Oh no.
The Unseen is making a ZeRo video, guys. You guys better be warned. You best be prepared. The Unseen is making a ZeRo video. You should all be scared.
If a debate between Tech and Augie wouldn't have progressed anything, then this really didn't progress anything, although it did have its moments. This was followed by an hour and 40-minute long debate with Connor that's terrible to listen to even to this day, as Connor pretty much just talked in circles the entire time.
Why do you bring Pixel Drink? The guy who sent his cock to kids.
His cock to kids?
Yeah.
Really?
Why do you bring him around people?
That's pretty
that's exactly what happened, right?
If the previous debate really didn't progress anything, then this one really didn't progress anything. However, this whole Discord thing does end in Tech having a nice productive conversation with Boblax, which I'll admit was nice. After this is where everything takes an even more interesting turn, as on February 9th, Technicals appeared for an interview on Def Noodle's YouTube channel. Now, the actual interview isn't really relevant because it's pretty much just all the stuff that Tech had said by then. The really important thing is what came right after. Around an hour and a half after Def Noodles released his interview with Technicals, #1 enemy of Def Noodles, Keemstar, tweeted, "Get in a private call and make peace. I'll moderate. No recording," adding Technicals, Nick, Augie, and Tipster. Following this, a few hours later, Keem, Tech, Nick, Augie, and Tipster all simultaneously tweeted out this image, which reads, "After a private meeting hosted by Keemstar, we all agree to disagree and stop the ongoing feud. We would like to encourage our fans to also cease fire." And just like that, the Technicals drama was over. This was all talked about more formally in a stream by AugieRFC the next day. Now, it's notable that we don't know all that much about what was said in this call, but most of what we do know comes from this stream. Augie says that while he and Tech still have their major disagreements with each other, they were all able to get to a bury the hatchet point. He also mentions that both sides conceded on some things. He doesn't say what Tech conceded on to respect his privacy, but Augie does say one of the things that he would have done differently in the drama.
If I had a chance to redo this drama, honestly speaking, like, I don't think I would have brought up the brother thing. I mean, you can speculate on intent with it, but it doesn't prove anything. I don't think if I were given a chance to redo this whole situation, I would have brought that talking point up, basically.
Lastly, Augie talks about how Tech was surprisingly good faith in their conversation.
I did not get the impression at all that he was acting in bad faith in the call, which surprised me. That was basically the reason why I didn't want to talk to him in the first place, is because I expected him to come in with bad faith and bad intent. But actually, I did not get those vibes at all from the call.
Overall, while many people called it gay, pumping the brakes on the drama probably saved everyone a lot of headache, as before the truce, the drama wasn't progressing at all, and by the end, the conversation had moved so far away from ZeRo that it was nearly unrecognizable. It's safe to say that this had become one of the most vicious dramas in recent memory, and pretty much everyone involved had something to gain from moving on and leaving it in the past. Post the truce, Augie, Nick, and Tipster would be relatively cool with Tech, although none of them would really return to being friends with him like before the drama. Augie would be more friendly with Tech, talking to him a handful of times on stream, taking a picture with him at VidCon, as well as having him on his livestream to debate Mr. Girl with Boblax. Nick, however, was definitely less friendly than Augie. While he was friendly to Tech on a few streams, he wasn't shy on bashing him a bit.
See, like, this is why I can't go to VidCon. I could never take a fucking picture with that guy. But you wouldn't catch me fucking dead hanging out with people I can't fucking stand, so... power to Augie, sellout bitch.
Dude, they're tweeting that you broke the truce on the stream.
Oh, no, I didn't break the truce. I mean, I said, like... Oh, yeah, maybe I... No, I didn't. We didn't talk about, we didn't talk about 1-1.
During guillotines? What the fuck?
In the grand scheme of things, though, everything was back to normal. Before we end off, I want to take a look at where everyone has ended up since this situation, and we'll start with...
Augie.
For a while during mid-2022, Augie was on a roll. With situations like the dramas with the Actman, Def Noodles, and Flamenco, Augie was putting out content on a pretty consistent basis. However, towards the end of the year, the content started to slow, and it hasn't really picked up again until more recently.
Welcome to the Red Fox Comms channel. Been a little bit of a while since we last uploaded. In fact, our last upload on the channel was very controversial. I don't know if
it was a very
it was an interesting clip.
upload, yeah.
Yeah.
Check it out.
Ever since the tech drama, Augie's tended to avoid using specific terms like pedophile and just focusing on what the person he's talking about did, which is probably for the best.
Lord, I just don't care. Pop pills and get high till my soul ain't there.
Nick has been in a similar situation to Augie. While he's always been active on Twitter, as of now, the last upload on his main channel was actually uploaded while the tech drama was still going on. However, that doesn't mean he wasn't doing stuff, as he had worked on multiple videos that just didn't see the light of day, as well as being an integral part in situations like the Flamenco drama. Overall, nothing too interesting, however, he has teased a return to making main channel videos, so that should be pretty cool. Also, I'd say that Nick has probably been the one to reference the tech drama the most since the truce, which I would certainly take note of.
This is where I see a very warped view of marriage and divorce.
Tipster did not have a very good 2022. During that year, on top of getting made fun of all the time, got his embarrassing DM history leaked by a crazy e-girl who would later go on to get her young child to call someone the N-word over Discord. Some of the criticisms levied at Tipster surrounding his reaction to Technical's video hold very true to this day, as when it comes to situations where Tipster gets really defensive about things that he has no reason to be, they just keep happening over.
Tipster completely pisses himself and unfollows everybody over a harmless meme.
And over?
Yeah, I guess so. That's why you got blocked, because this doesn't have anything to do with me, and you really want to make it about me. Enjoy your little 15 seconds of fame, you fucking loser.
And over again. Just to be clear, I don't think Tipster's a bad guy. I just think that he's really dumb. As of recently, Tipster's decided to leave the commentary community to go be friends with Keffels, who is apparently less toxic than his former friends. I'd press X to doubt on that one. Also, remember that guy Larix I talked about earlier? Well, after his initial video on Tipster came out, they had a feud that lasted for a while, which culminated in an event where Larix jokingly tweeted out a fake legal threat DM'd to him by a fake Tipster account, which led to, well...
You clearly can't.
You fell for a fake fucking Tipster account! This is what I'm talking about! This is how fucking stupid you are! You fell for a fake Tipster account! You're a fucking joke, and nobody believes anything that comes out of your fucking mouth because you literally fell for a fake Tipster account! You fucking loser! Suck my dick and get the fuck out of here!
This would eventually lead to the rise of...
I was like, I want you to fucking piss on me. Like, I'm not even fucking joking. I'd look at her, I want you to fucking piss on me. This is the one girl that could piss on me. Like, I would fucking let her pee on my dick any day.
Hey, commentary community. I'm outside right now touching some grass. I think you guys could all take a little bit of advice from that.
John Swan is someone who just can't seem to keep himself out of trouble. Barely 2 months after the tech drama ended, John already got himself into another huge lying scandal, where it was found out that he was the ghostwriter of a Google document trying to paint some guy in his community as some kind of sexual predator for being in a relationship with a 15-year-old as an 18-year-old. John would initially claim to have very little involvement in the document, however later on it was found out that he wrote a decent portion of it, editing it to make the situation seem way worse than it really was.
And that whole narrative that was put in this document, which I guess I'm finding out now was apparently put in there completely manufactured by John Swan. What is this? Is this like a lie on top of a lie?
After all this, John got exiled from the community a second time, however the chances of him being able to come back to it this time are slim to none. A couple months later, John would return to making content with 2 sort of bland videos, as well as eventually a 2-part series about Deaf Noodles, which funnily enough actually had a little segment referencing ZeRo.
Because a single slip-up can give the influencer in question the ammunition necessary to rebut the claims based on one inconsistency or mistake, even if the majority of the allegation is valid.
He also appeared on a few streams where he talked about fucking or something? Very interesting. As of now, it seems like most of John's former connections and commentary have either turned on him for all the bad shit he did or have been exiled themselves. The future of John Swan does not look good at the moment.
I'm over here stroking my dick. I got lotion on my dick when I'm just stroking my shit. I'm horny as fuck, man. I'm a freak, man.
For the most part, Technical stayed on the path that he had been on before all of the drama started, that being his crusade against the Super Smash Bros. Community. He had a few positive run-ins with the commentary community in this time, such as appearing on some streams with commentators, as well as the aforementioned picture with Augie. Tech also had some other interactions with commentators. The first one involves a debate on Doc on the Radio's channel that John Swan was having with another YouTuber named Lanza. You see, 5 days before this debate, Lanza had released a 2-hour-long documentary-style video about John, attempting to catalog all of John's controversies. The only problem with this video was that Lanza had included 2 whole John Swan videos, being the 2 embarrassing ones I Empathize with Dream and The Future of the Channel. These videos took up around 35 whole minutes of the video's runtime. John made the argument that this was not fair use, and the debate was pretty much a slam dunk from his side as, come on, the guy included 2 whole uncut videos. However, Technicals called in to voice his grievances with John on this stream.
Swan.
Hello, mate. How's it going?
Why would you say that you don't care if people saw the video and then tweet out that you could justifiably strike it?
Because I was talking about fair use.
Yeah, but who gives a shit? You don't
Me.
care if people see it, so why would you
Me.
tweet out about fair use?
Me.
The second one involves a debate about John Swan, again on Doc on the Radio's channel. You see, the people targeted by that document John wrote were 18 and 15, the same ages of the high school context thing that Augie talked about that Tech made fun of him for. Since Tech had taken his victory lap over John Swan after his involvement in the doc came out, Willie Maxshow, who you might remember from earlier in the video, took issue with Tech as he saw it as hypocritical for Tech to be going so hard on John Swan when he had made fun of Augie for his take on the exact same age gap. However, whatever point Willie was trying to make was marred by him not really knowing what he was talking about, which led to this debate being really awkward. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Except, there's one person we haven't heard from in quite a while. I think we should take a look back at ZeRo. Throughout this entire commentary Civil War fiasco, which shifted the conversation every which way except towards ZeRo stayed silent. But of course, he was at work behind the scenes, as it was known that the lawsuit between ZeRo and Jisoo was still underway. On September 9th, 2022, we would see the conclusion of this legal action, when a now more physically fit ZeRo uploaded, "The lawsuit is over." This video is split into 3 parts, one being an attack on Leffen, another being a channel update, and finally, the one I actually care about, discussion of the lawsuit. First off, ZeRo states that the lawsuit has been fully concluded and provides a joint statement from him and Jisoo which details the following things. ZeRo apologizes for his role in Jisoo feeling harassed and demeaned due to the events of the Sky House, as well as saying that he regrets that her pain was exacerbated by the online discussion of her experiences. Jisoo apologizes for spreading false rumors about ZeRo's wife, Vanessa. And that's pretty much it. Not anywhere in the joint statement are the allegations surrounding Katie even mentioned. As a matter of fact, in a video released later on February 13th, 2023 by Black Wolf Company called ZeRo Remorse, the Smash community's darkest secret, the lawsuit is looked at more directly. ZeRo's lawsuit with Jisoo initially involved 4 claims of defamation. However, by the time the lawsuit was actually underway, the statute of limitations had expired for 3 of the 4 claims, leaving only 1 left. This one claim left, however, was very interesting. This lone claim of defamation concerned a tweet that Jisoo had made about ZeRo during the controversy surrounding EE's interview. The tweet reads, "Are we just conveniently forgetting that he literally asked a 14-year-old girl to send pictures of herself masturbating with ice cubes and offered to fly another minor out to do that in a hotel for him?" Now, what's interesting about this tweet is that ZeRo only denies the second claim made, being the claim that he offered to fly out a minor to a hotel. He completely ignores the first part that discusses Katie's allegation. After ZeRo filed this complaint, the judge pretty much said, "Hey man, do you want to deny the first part too? This seems kinda strange." She gives ZeRo the benefit of the doubt and considers ZeRo's failure to deny the whole tweet from Jisoo as a drafting error. After this, she gives ZeRo the opportunity to file an amended complaint. In ZeRo's amended complaint, he still doesn't deny the first part of Jisoo's tweet, leaving that part unchanged. I would say that this is worth noting. However, whether or not ZeRo was guilty or innocent, he probably wouldn't be in any state to sue Jisoo over the Katie allegations, since they were something he had previously admitted to, and I wish BWC made this more clear in his video. Eventually, this lawsuit would lead to ZeRo and Jisoo settling out of court, meaning that neither of them won the lawsuit. The known stipulations of this settlement were that Jisoo would delete her Google document about ZeRo, Jisoo and ZeRo would both drop the topic, and as an unofficial part of the settlement, Technicals would remove his video, What Really Happened to ZeRo. Now, despite this lawsuit being pretty sketchy on its own, it makes what comes next even more sketchy. In ZeRo's video about the lawsuit, he says something very concerning.
To follow up on the topic of allegations, I am aware that there are further allegations made to my name by an individual that goes of the name of Katie. To be fully transparent, I have been pursuing this individual for a while to be able to fully resolve the issue through the appropriate legal channels. However, we believe that this individual is intentionally avoiding any sort of contact with my legal team. Because of this, I am unable to fully resolve the issue properly through the legal channel.
Don't be mistaken here. This is an open threat to essentially sue the fuck out of Katie. As someone who had followed the situation for quite a while, this was infuriating to me. ZeRo is going out of his way here to threaten this girl, which should not be taken lightly. Making everything even more strange, in the next part of the video, he says this.
Essentially, I don't want my life to be held up by allegations made by a completely anonymous individual. To further clarify, allegations that I fully deny, and their biggest allegation which claims soliciting, there is no evidence for.
For the first time, ZeRo takes a step to deny Katie's allegations. Now, it's unclear here what exactly ZeRo's denying, however, it's worded in a way that suggests that he's now denying all of Katie's allegations. Of course, if you're this far into the video, by now you'll know that's a load of BS. On top of the fact that ZeRo confessed to everything, and the retraction to that confession doesn't make any damn sense, back in 2021, ZeRo said,
"There is a lot to go over, but the easiest and best way to learn the truth is to watch these 2 videos made by Technicals."
If you'll remember Technicals' video, while he presented the allegation of ZeRo soliciting nudes very ambiguously, even he acknowledged that ZeRo flirted with Katie, saying things like,
"This, in my opinion, is probably the only serious and legitimate problem that people have with ZeRo. In the messages we are provided, it's very clear that ZeRo is being flirtatious. I'm not going to read them, but these messages on screen are 100% unacceptable, and he'll be the first to tell you that."
So unless ZeRo is retroactively going back and disagreeing with Technical's video, this doesn't make any sense. ZeRo also mentions some kind of extra evidence that he apparently can't tell us about, and in the words of Technicals,
"If this defense that no one has seen is so strong, then why isn't it an open and shut case? So many questions, and yet no answers."
This whole thing reeks of misdirection. We would actually get to see more of this when on December 20th, 2022, a schizo thread was published. On that day, a Twitter user published a thread called The Katie Files, trying to find the identity of Katie. Now I'll cut to the chase and go ahead and say that this thread was retarded. It can't conclusively prove much of anything about Katie's identity because it's based on things that are most likely complete coincidences. I'm not going to go super in depth here, so if you'd like a more detailed explanation, I'll link a thread that I had made covering this topic more closely. But the basic gist of it all is that this thread asserts that Katie is actually a 26-year-old Twitter user, placing her at approximately 18 years old during the time that ZeRo messaged Katie. The only problem is that the only connection between these two people is they had the same incredibly generic username. This, of course, is not proof of anything, which means that this thread frames some random person off of basic coincidences. To show how dumb this thread is, its creator even deleted more than half of it later on due to lack of concrete evidence. I reached out to the creator of this thread myself, and he even admits that he got quote-unquote way too schizo when making the thread. Also, coincidentally, a day before the thread was posted, a small YouTuber named Crows of Judgment, or Comic Crow, streamed discussing the exact same false information. Here, Crow says that he found all of this information, and I'm not joking here, in half an hour while he was drunk and high.
Why the fuck do I care about this fucking whore Katie? I honestly, no shit, I don't. I really fucking don't. And yet, me and my friends can take like the half fucking hour it took to look into it. I'm not kidding. As soon as we saw the username, it took us about 30 minutes to find her identity. Because we did this shit drunk and high off our fucking asses.
What a fucking idiot. Now, you might be asking, why does some dumbass making a thread even matter? Well, to answer that question, 3 days later, ZeRo himself promoted the thread, saying, "A very important thing to look through and consider in my case that somebody compiled in their free time. Read through if you are actually open to changing your mind." On top of this being dumb as fuck, when the girl the thread accused of being Katie chimed in pleading with ZeRo to tell his audience that she is not Katie, ZeRo responds like a fucking anime villain. Yeah, I don't know. Let's make this easy. Go talk to technicals and verify your identity.
So like DMs or here. The whole ordeal is because of pictures, right? You've probably seen the girl's face in those times. I do have IRL photos to show I'm not Katie if that's the case.
No, I have no idea what the fuck they look like at all, but you can DM technicals. Thanks for cooperating. All of this just goes further to show ZeRo's complete and utter lack of remorse when it comes to Katie. Denying what he had once admitted to, threatening to sue the victim, and promoting a bogus Twitter thread trying to expose her with no concrete evidence really shows ZeRo's true character. From everything we've seen from him, I would guess that ZeRo is not sorry. He's sorry that he got caught. Now, I can't say that if ZeRo showed true remorse over the situation, everyone would welcome him back with open arms. There will always be people that look at what he admitted to doing and shun him based off of that, and that's fine. But I, along with many others, would feel much more comfortable with ZeRo's return if he had shown that he was truly a changed man. Truly sorry. At this point, I don't know if that will ever happen. ZeRo has been keeping up his charade of denial and misdirection for more than a year now, and he doesn't show any signs of stopping anytime soon. In fact, recently, ZeRo has announced that he'll be starting his own online Smash tournaments for banned players. When responding preemptively to backlash he may receive about who he'll allow in his tournaments, he talks about not allowing people who were banned for doing terrible things, and only allowing people that were unjustifiably banned.
My objective is not to necessarily host a tournament, just to invite a bunch of criminals and a bunch of, people that are banned, because the reality is that there are people who are banned that should be banned that did terrible things, right? That's just what it is, right? But there are certain scenarios where I feel like there are certain players who should be allowed to play that don't make sense that they're banned, that, in a case-by-case scenario.
Well, ZeRo, you did terrible things. It makes sense why you were banned. Even Technicals agrees that your ban from tournaments is justified. I understand that these aren't traditional tournaments, but with the rules you've laid out, you would be banned from your own tournaments. I just don't get it. ZeRo has also claimed to have talked to iDubbbz about appearing in some influencer boxing match in the future, which I'm just hoping isn't actually real at this point.
I have actually talked with iDubbbz about joining an event at some point, and I do have over a year of boxing under my belt.
The whole ZeRo situation has been absolutely wild. From ZeRo's admission to guilt, his return to the internet, Technical's 3-month-long battle with the commentary community, ZeRo's lawsuit with Jisoo, to where we are right now, this situation has been interesting for better or for worse. Mostly for worse, though. When it came to the drama surrounding the situation, no one handled it perfectly and there was big mistakes made on both ends. However, when one side's end goal was to welcome back someone who has shown zero remorse for what he admitted to doing, I tend to agree more with the other side. In fact, speaking of that admission, I think we should hear it one last time, just to show how far we've come, how much the conversation is strayed away from what really matters, and how remorseless ZeRo has been ever since this confession. Take it away. Hey, I can't sleep and I just can't take this back and forth. I don't think it makes sense to keep this going. I just want this all to stop and for me to at least atone. I also want people to stop defending me. I don't deserve it. I really want to atone, and I just want this discussion to stop. I'm not a good person, and it doesn't matter how terrible my life was. I did terrible things, and that's the end of it. I don't deserve for people to defend me. I love you guys. Please don't be like me, and please don't forgive me either. I won't forgive myself either.